Alright, I was left that whole time. I guess that's why people do start screens, eh? Well, I'm gonna take a look first of all at this vegan gaze video which she put up today. Big fan of this vegan content creator. She's made a video, I was left that whole time, about, I guess that's why people why you should make a vegan channel in 2025. We'll watch this for a little bit, some other stuff that I want to watch also, and we will have Ask Yourself joining at 9 o'clock, so in about an hour and 15. Let's take a look.
Hello there, I've been meaning to make a video for a little bit since I've been making more content again on YouTube as to why I think other vegans should be making content on YouTube as well. A little backstory, and I will add chapters to this video so you can skip because you might not care about this, but I've been doing YouTube vegan content since I think like 2014. I have made so many videos and deleted so many videos out of pure cringe and not liking what I've made and evolving and changing my style.
That's something I haven't done yet. I'll probably have to get around to doing that at some point. Deleting my first low production value, slightly cringy videos. But, you know, go watch them while you've got the chance, I guess.
And stuff like that. And over the time, I've come to find YouTube to be quite stressful. It comes with its negatives for sure, but it also comes with its positives. And I've seen those positives despite not being a well-known vegan YouTuber or anything like that. Regardless of what people are creating and why they're creating it or who they're creating it for, they want videos to be viewed, right? People will be like, oh my god, you're just trying to get views. Yeah, it's a video. I would like it to be viewed, please. That
I do sometimes think that. A few people have said that my thumbnails are a bit clickbait, and I kind of can see where they're coming from, but at the same time, does clickbait need to mean anything other than something that you want to click on? I guess that there's some implication that it's sort of misleading or that it's not really what it says it is, and I don't think that's the case. You obviously want to make them look like, wow, I want to click on that, right?
That is desired so much that if you don't accomplish that, then that is seen as something to be ashamed of, embarrassed about, and I have definitely been embarrassed about it in the past, and sometimes I still to this day feel a bit of disappointment when I don't get high views on a video, but I've definitely come.
Go and subscribe to Vegan Gaze, everyone. This is a really good channel. I really like her. She's very sort of sincere and you know, British, which I always appreciate in a content creator.
Back to YouTube with a fresh perspective that's made me happier, and I'm hoping.
I don't think she has anything to be embarrassed about her views either.
Hoping that as someone who has not been able to even get 10,000 subscribers in the 10 plus years I've been posting, someone who's.
I don't have real subscribers, by the way. Just to put that out there at this point. Okay, I paid for ads when I started my channel, naively thinking that that would translate into ongoing views, but alas. So although I on paper have nearly 13k subscribers, in reality it's sort of like less than 1k.
Not well known in the vegan sphere. There's still the positives and still that need to do it, and I will express precisely why. Firstly, the power of longevity. Like, as I said, yeah, I've looked back at some videos and thought they were absolutely cringe. My positions have changed on things for sure. But at the same time, it is cool looking back and having some sort of diary of the things that I've created. Knowing that in 100 years' time, you know, who knows what's going to be around? Maybe aliens. Maybe the aliens are watching my video and they are appreciating what I'm saying. Hopefully by that time, you know, veganism would have progressed and people will look at what, you know, vegans were saying, and they will see it with a different perspective of like, duh, of course. That's my hope anyway, but knowing that the idea could outlive me, I've watched YouTubers and had this weird feeling and realization that they've actually passed away. And there they are with their opinions and ideas. A snippet of their life is there. And I think that's
It's a really powerful point. The power of longevity, she's called this section. There's a really powerful point. I think the same about writing and publishing things. Put your thoughts into the world and let them be remembered, right, and outlive you. That's a cool thing now. When I die, there will be a bunch of my YouTube videos, right? I won't be able to delete the cringy old ones. But really though, sometimes I do look at my YouTube Studio Creator app and I think, wow, it's quite cool that I've been speaking, I've spoken to people for 12 hours today, let's say, and I haven't left my house or actually spoken to anybody, but because I've recorded it and put it down. I mean, I think there's so much in that. I often am, worried is not the right word, but it feels like there's lost value when there's such high value interactions in text, in just like a transient chat or like social media comments or something like that. I mean, I guess that it is preserved, but it seems so momentary. I think recordings of these things and sort of forms of writing which are meant to last are worth putting out there.
kind of cool, right? Even if it feels a bit strange. Interacting with someone kind of parasocially who's not even alive. At the same time, we're trying to spread these ideas and trying to get people to understand that animals ought not be exploited. So our words can actually outlive us and be captured here on YouTube.
Oh, and the other thing she said about, people from the future looking back and just having a record of having been obviously on the right side of history. Right. I think that it is cool to be able to look back and say, look at that. We were saying that when we were, 1% of the population or 2% of the population, and the culture was to laugh at and ridicule vegans, we were still saying the right thing. That's a really cool thing to have a record of. I'm very pleased that, I have a record of what I thought in 2025, right, and before. So I definitely think, record your ideas, put them out there, publish them. They'll outlive you, and they'll, in the long term, prove you right. You'll get to a massive "I told you so."
Another important aspect is the need for representation, in the sense that I am made fully aware every single day just how the way I engage with the world and my general appearance is so offensive to people that they don't want to listen to a word I have to say. I'm a vegan who fulfills a lot of the stereotypes. I'm cool.
Yeah, thanks. Why not? I tragically started up and the title was My Broadcast, which is the OBS default, but second live stream ever, so, we're learning.
Queer, I have a nose ring.
Disgusting.
Because of my poor eyesight that, by the way, I was born with. It didn't suddenly happen because I went vegan. I have these really magnifying glasses. Things like this. People sometimes don't want to listen to me just on that superficial fact, which is kind
I bet that sometimes people do, though. I quite like that she's quite quirky and has the big glasses and the nose ring. That's part of the personality, isn't it? I mean, no doubt that it's... I suppose there's sort of flavours of people, right? And people find different characters to be appealing. That's actually another interesting point. That's actually... Maybe this is... okay, so this is the point she's making. Paul's Andying over here. If you are, you're going to watch me if you like sort of slightly posh British blokes with a bit of an annoying voice. And that is, your cup of tea if you're watching. But if it's not, that's totally fine. You realise you can't please all the people all the time. And you're not really meant to. All of this kind of stuff, certainly at this scale, at my scale, and Vegan Gaze is a larger content creator than I am. Again, just if people are joining the stream late, I don't really have 13k subs, so don't tell anyone. Then, yeah, there's value in basically just different types of characters saying the same thing, because you are going to be able to reach more people.
of pathetic, but it just kind of is how people work. It is just the case that my mere appearance is going to put people off listening to me, and they're going to resonate better with somebody else. It's a good...
Some people, I think she's being a bit harsh on herself here. honestly, I quite like this sort of quirky, punky-looking girl. Like, that's quite cool to me. But you know, I think she's being a bit hard on herself here. I think it's niches, isn't it? It's flavors of people. People are going to have different preferences for this kind of thing.
Thing that I advocate, and it's a good thing that someone like Empty Cages advocates as well. This big guy who does Brazilian jiu-jitsu and has to eat loads of calories a day just to maintain his lifestyle.
That's true. It is good that they're both doing it, but he is not better than her. She's saying, do you know what I mean? I don't know who that guy is. It's just different flavors, it's different approaches.
Brought up in America and he was a hunter. I do not have that experience of being someone who is a hunter. It is good to have these people, and you are probably someone who looks a lot different from me and has a different experience to me, and just sharing that experience will probably help other people who are not like me resonate with you better. So we need more people to speak up and talk about their experience, because
Based vegan STEM.
It will align and resonate more with somebody else, where I would completely fail right off the door just as they get one sniff of me. Stinky! There are more benefits to making videos than just like the viewership, the subscribers, all of those kind of metrics that are constantly, you know, oh, do this, do that, you want to get this to optimize your views and everything like that. There's another load of stuff that like doesn't really get touched upon as much, and it's kind of the ongoing effects down the line of, you know, being able to mingle with a community more, you meet more people, comes to bigger opportunities, people see the stuff you do, they like what you do, maybe you can get job opportunities or things like that. Absolutely, yeah. Stuff that you put out into the world becomes an advert for yourself, an example of the type of thing that you do. And, you know, some people are going to want to interact with more of that. And, again, there's a bit of tasting in here, right? But when you put yourself out there, good things do start to happen. I mean, I've been quite surprised, I have to say. Again, I really don't have as many subscribers as my sub count suggests there, but I have been quite surprised at the amount that people are just very forthcoming and keen to help and offer information and share stuff in the Discord. The Discord's quite active now, which I love. By the way, I'm going to put a link to this video in the chat here, so go give Vegan Gaze a like and a view and a subscribe and everything else and a comment. Like that, I've got my job through my YouTube channel. So yeah, I do my...
Oh, that's cool. She got a job through her YouTube channel.
Vegan Gaze stuff every week. At the same time, I'm doing stuff for an organization that's vegan. It really helped me. You know, I went to university and got a degree in something that I can't make a career out of. And, you know, I was working in hospitality, you know, at the very best moment I worked at a vegetarian restaurant and, you know, still serving dairy and all these things that I wasn't even morally comfortable with. So making these things can get you connected with people so you can get into positions where you'd feel more comfortable and able to advocate for something you're passionate about. I know a lot of people who do not want to spend their time advocating over other things. They don't want to spend their time handling things that they morally oppose. Doing that can lead to opportunities, even if it doesn't mean that you get X number of subscribers that makes you feel like you're successful. There's more success to
just buy them. Just buy them.
Be had around it. That's why some YouTube gurus, they say things like, you know, see your videos and your channel as a seed. You know, it's going to grow possibly into something. You just have to plant it, and yeah, it could lead to something that is helpful for you. Not only the growth of your channel, but the growth of yourself. Like if you surround yourself with a community and you can kind of share ideas, you have a comment section, everything like this, it can enrich and strengthen your viewpoints so that you become a better advocate for the animals. Another benefit is
yeah, again, really, really true. I mean, yeah, there's not a ton of people in our Discord. I think there's about 60 people in there now. But it is really fantastic having that community. And you know, although I've never met or even spoken on VC to most of the people in there, you do develop, you know, sort of relationships with people in chats like that, and share information. And I did a whole series of LinkedIn posts and subsequent video about it based on some of the parachute stuff that people have put in my Discord server. So that was good fun. But yeah, definitely having announcing that you are going to be a sort of hub of, I'm going to make stuff, I'm going to do stuff, and there can sort of form a community around you, comment sections, everything like that.
Reach and efficiency. I know a lot of people who spend their time outreaching to one person. The benefit is really put their focus in that individual. And
hey Tim, good to see you. Hey Gary.
Obviously, we have a chance to have a conversation that could inspire a difference in thinking and then a difference in action. But it's a lot of time to spend on one person who might not do it, as opposed to optimizing it where you could have potentially tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands for some people, of people who are watching this and hearing the same message that you've just delivered. And sometimes intuitively, I'm just gonna intuit here. I think it's probably easier for someone to hear a message that they also agree with, but they're not the ones being attacked, right? You're attacked, you're attacking someone by sharing your opinion and obviously going against what they stand for. But if you're the one directly being challenged, I think it's probably a bit harder than it would be for someone who fully agrees with them and still wants to defend that view and see it be defended, but you're not the one being challenged in that moment properly. So I think it could actually be better for the person who's witnessing the side that they're on look worse or not have the arguments, But essentially, obviously, you're going to have a bigger chance in increasing your outreach abilities if even 10 people see your video. So put the video up. And this stuff isn't just for you.
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, we're real life live. We're this is the second ever live stream.
YouTube. We'll go on about why YouTube's important, but obviously I'm also on Instagram, Threads, TikTok. I post there as well. It's important if you have the bandwidth to kind of put your content where you can. Like if you've made a short form video, it kind of depends. Like some of the stuff that I post is quite graphic, so it can't go on TikTok, but there's a lot of stuff that can go on TikTok, so I should be putting it there as well. I should be putting it on YouTube. It just makes sense. It takes 2 minutes longer? It's just remembering to do it.
That's so true. I have put a few of my I've made a few shorts. I've sort of experimented with the different YouTube formats, and I did put a few of them on TikTok. And TikTok is so interesting because most of them got 1 view or 0. I think some got 0 views, but then 1 out of 20 or like 2 out of 20 get like 1,000 views, and then it's just a very long tail of zeros basically, or 1 or 2 views. So videos there seem to either fly or just do nothing. But yeah, that's another thing I'll say on this actually. It's a thing that other people can clip your content and make videos out of it, and I fully encourage people to do that with any of my content. Especially now that I'm streaming, right? Unless I say something bad. But feel free to go to my videos, clip up bits that you find to be useful, clip up bits from the debate, right? Put it on TikTok, put it on Instagram, whatever you want to do. I want that content to be out there. It becomes an advert for you, right? So I'm not going to be precious about anybody stealing content or even making money off or anything like that. Go for it, right? Maybe I'm not interesting enough yet to for that to be worthwhile, but if there are any clippers
could be the problem, right? But I've looked into YouTube a bit more recently. I've been trying to, obviously I make videos, I want to improve them constantly.
Yo, no way, Tim, that's awesome. Thank you, dude. Thank you so much. That's so sick.
I don't want to fall into a pit of just stagnation or anything like that in the way I'm performing. So I've been looking into YouTube, and YouTube's size I had greatly underestimated, and it only seems to be increasing. So obviously you know, if the platform's so massive, of course, the competition for eyes, for engagement is going to be there because it's so large and so many people post on it. But we need to be on here. We need to be advocating. There's plenty of anti-vegan, anti-animal crap on this platform that needs to be combated, right? Yes, it can feel like shouting into the void sometimes, and it is difficult, of course. You know, I have never been a highly viewed channel or anything like that, but I have had dips, and certainly because, you know, I took more time to focus on Instagram, for example, my YouTube has fallen off in a way. You could say that for sure. There's like less people who watch, less people who seem to care, but they're watching, they're caring, and I know they are because I watch people and I care about their videos as well. Like, it's just going to be the case that there are going to be people watching and who like to watch and will carry on watching. Like,
hell yeah, I used to watch Vegan Gays live streams when I would work out in my home gym at my old house. And I have to say, it is so heartening when, obviously, you put stuff out there and you get, you know, 100 views or 200 views, whatever it may be. Sometimes you do better, sometimes you do worse. The numbers, I don't know if this is the same for other people, but I don't feel that sensitive to the numbers. There's something in there about like scope neglect or scale neglect, right, where you can't, you know, I'm not going to have a 10 times as good reaction if I get 1,000 views as if I got 100 views. I might have like a 2 times as good reaction, right? But what is really, really great, and I always say this in my videos, but I really mean it, people commenting and people just, you know, writing out like, I really appreciate this, I found this inspiring, I did, you know, especially when people are giving to the charities and stuff like that, I absolutely love it. The comments really, I'm going to comment on this video now that I'm going on about commenting. Everyone go and give Vegan Gays a subscribe and everything else. Absolutely love your channel. Please keep making videos. I said that as if I was going to type something else, but then I didn't. I was going to write, I used to watch her live streams in the gym, and I thought she doesn't care about that. Or maybe she does. This is the point. This is the point of this section.
come on, how much slop have you seen on this platform? It's not out of the question that someone could just enjoy what you provide, right? I think it's good for
Absolutely, I'm one of them. And also there's, you know, half a dozen people watching here who haven't tuned out, so that's a good sign.
establishing a deeper why. Like, I'm sat here right now, okay? And there's a me that's gonna have to deal with this video afterwards, who's gonna watch this back so that I can put it all together and post it on the internet. And I think the entire process is actually really integral to helping me understand the deeper why. Sometimes it's quite easy to get demotivated when you are constantly bombarded with the sheer consequence and the vast, horrendous atrocity that is animal agriculture, is animal
Yeah, no Freddie Leroy in the chat tonight, Tim, unfortunately.
exploitation, is all of these industries that profit from and exploit animals. It is so viciously horrendous that it can cause a lot of demotivating feelings. I think when you sit down and you take the time to dedicate to talk about a given subject, I think it really helps to validate and fuel the motivation to carry on doing it, for sure. And I say this as someone who's been an animal advocate for over 10 years now. Like, I just am quite a lazy person. I'm not heavily motivated. I don't have very much self-discipline, yet I have the drive to constantly talk about this, to debate someone, to, you know, just make content all of the time.
She's a good debater as well.
Like, I've just, most of my life is making content, be it writing, be it, you know, designing something like a picture for a carousel or something like that. I'm always making stuff. And I think it's because I structure my days in a way that I have this inspiration to keep lighting a fire up my ass. So the creative process itself is just one of those things that has inspired me, and maybe it can do the same for you. Like, maybe you're someone who's deeply into photography. So if you're making this animal rights photography and you're capturing moments in time that are very powerful, like if you attend animal vigils and you see these animals just before they're about to be murdered, that can, you know, definitely drive you.
I'm not sure about donos, Kerry. You have to reach a certain threshold on YouTube before you can turn all of that stuff on. But I would probably do, yeah, Tim says animal charity evaluators. Yeah, yeah. I might do some sort of donation, like charity donation link. But I appreciate you asking, Kerry. That's awesome.
To keep doing it. So if you've been thinking about creating content, or even if you haven't been thinking about creating content and you've just been someone who does do activism, but you're too nervous to film it, all these things, I deeply encourage you to consider it. And it might be something that like you're actually better at than you thought you were. I am not designed for making videos, if I think about it really. I can't hold a conversation. I'm very socially awkward.
Don't look at me.
I don't really know what to say to people.
Honestly, I think this is part of what I like about Vegan Gays. Like, I don't know, she just seems like very familiar, very like relatable. Like she could have been your mate when you're a teenager. Or not, not that she would be your mate when you're a teenager, but do you know what I mean? That kind of familiar character is nice. Oh, damn. I might have frozen here. That will not do. Oh, okay, I think
when I'm talking to them because I'm socially awkward. I absolutely do not like being on camera. I do not enjoy it. I cringe when I watch myself back, but I sit there and I'm on camera trying to talk about something that I find important. And, you know, you could be doing that as well. We definitely need to mark our place on YouTube for sure. I think communities kind of go up and down sort of thing. And I feel like...
Isn't it encouraging that she's not half as cringe as she seems to think she is? But that's probably true of a lot of people.
It's been down for a little while and it could do with a revamp for sure. And there's definitely people who are working really hard to build that community. Like you have, you know, Chip, he's often live, he's making these outreach videos, the live streams, you know, very often. You have people like Mel and Steve who are calling for people to, you know, go to slaughterhouses on Fridays and live stream themselves doing it to improve and optimize the reach so people can actually like bear.
Yeah, that stuff's been crazy, by the way. I might watch Plant Geezer video after this, where he goes to the slaughterhouses. He just turns up, pretends to be a jogger. Well, I guess he does jog there, so he's not he's not pretending in that sense. But he pretends to sort of stumble onto these factory farms, and then, you know, people come want to chuck him off and everything. That's quite good content.
A witness with them. You have people like Virtue Postmortem who are going live and debating people and bringing them into their server where they're trying to uplift the reach and engagement of various vegan YouTubers. Definitely have people trying, and you could be part of that by actually making the content. I think that would be sick. And just to clarify, a couple of people have said that they wanted me to edit their videos, but they didn't think I would have time or anything like that. And sometimes I don't have time, but sometimes I also do. If you want some help with your videos being made, you've got loads of content, then I could potentially take some clients. It might be especially helpful to motivate, you know, when you have like a log of stuff that's ready to upload and you get into the habit, it can make it just easier to like get that jump start, right? I'll leave Virtue Postmortem's Discord down below and my email so you can contact me about this potentially.
Yeah, that's a base Discord server. You should join that as well. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's the link. If I do that, will it work?
And I suppose I'll take this opportunity as I'm talking about this that, yeah, expect more content from me. I'm just now doing it, you know, not to set myself up for disappointment. I'm not looking at the metrics. Of course, I'm following certain things that you should, trying to make nice thumbnails, trying to make engaging titles, things like this that I've learned. But I'm not gonna fixate on it. And it focuses on one measure of success that I haven't been able to obtain through, you know, maybe it's a bit of not being so lucky, but probably through my own inability to just kind of learn things and adopt them. And
I feel she's been way too hard on herself here. She has 9k subs, real, and this is 120 views. This only came out a couple of hours ago. The thing is with stuff like being a YouTuber or being any kind of popular media figure, it's there's a limited number of people who can be at the top of that hierarchy by definition. It's not. Is it the same in other fields? I don't know. It's especially the case in entertainment, right? Not everyone can be top of the pops, so to speak. But I do think that there's a lot of value in the niches as well. There will be, I'm watching this, and I haven't watched Earthling Ed's last few videos, right? And he's got 500,000 subscribers. No disrespect to Earthling Ed, right? But there's a lot of like niche tastes that can be fulfilled by a variety of different kind of styles of content creators, and all the other benefits that she's mentioned as well. Really, some of them might be on a higher scale if you get loads of subs and loads of views, but honestly, again, my real sub count is probably like 500 to 1,000, but it's been shocking, like the amount of fulfillment that I've got from doing this, and just the amount of engagement even at that level, and opportunities that come up and so on. Like, it really is worth putting yourself out there. Good things will happen.
Just get with
you don't have to slap and get 1 million subscribers, right? I'm probably never going to get there. Vegan Gaze has been doing this for a long time. She's got 9k subscribers. I think it's very respectable
program, and I should be happy about the fact that I've met some awesome people and I've got to where I am today because of the videos that I decided to make. We don't really know what effect we're having on others. We could be having a really positive impact if we just put ourselves out there. I hope this has motivated you to make something, even if it's not on YouTube. Maybe you just don't like YouTube and you want to do more something on Instagram or something like that. I definitely do loads of short form content over on Instagram, so do check me out over there. Thank you so much to everyone who supports me. Thank you to my patrons. Thank you to my channel members. And I do hope to see some of you creating new channels if you haven't made a YouTube channel before. And I do hope you are. And until next time, salads. I will see you soon.
Thirst trap work at that stream when? I really like WWE next. No, I really like Vegan Gaze's channel. She's got some great perspectives, and I think there is the main thing that I would add to that is this point about niche preferences, right? You don't have to have 1 million views in every video to be successful. And in fact, the people who are able to achieve that level are they're more likely to be kind of generic people. No shade again to anyone who's marking my sub count, but Vegan Gaze is more of a character. She's very much my style of person. I really enjoy her sort of punky vibe and very just like frank and very British as well, right? Seems like, again, like a very familiar character, and I think that there's something in there about niche. Like, you don't have to think that you need to be the biggest content creator ever to be successful and more meaningful to the people that you speak to than people who have way more viewers overall, right? So there you go. Okay, what next? Well, we've got a big bit of news, actually. Lidl's plant-based sales surpassed targets, shooting up nearly 700%. This is, I think, fair to say, a little bit surprising news. In the recent, market for plant-based meats, it's been no secret that sales of some of these products have been not as hot as they were sort of 5 years ago. And the interesting thing about this is that they set this target, or rather they set a target, I think, for a 400% increase compared to 2020. So they set this target in 2020, which I think of as somewhere near the height of sort of plant-based mania for all of these kind of products, right, coming out. And the Burger King releases, and well, McDonald's I think was a couple of years later, but there was a lot around 2020. And so I think that at that time, saying we're going to increase our sales by 400% by 2025 wouldn't have seemed crazy to say that at the time with all the hype. But subsequently, I wouldn't be too surprised to see producers, backing off that. And in fact, Tesco had a similar target, if you recall. I think they were going to have a certain percentage of their protein supply coming from alternative proteins or plant-based sources or something like that by 2030, that was. And they have, abandoned that and said it's not going to happen. But Lidl reporting much better news. Lidl GB has announced that it's exceeded its 2025 sales goal for own-label plant-based products, achieving a staggering increase of almost 700%. The discount store chain had originally set out to increase its sales of meat and dairy alternatives by 400% this year, but has revealed it smashed its target already with a 694% increase. This significant milestone is part of the supermarket's wider commitment to increasing its plant-based protein offerings, aiming for them to make up 25% of total protein sales by 2030. I read on another source that figure was 11% in 2020 when they set the target, and then it's now up to 17%. I think I'm remembering those numbers right. So it looks like they're pretty much on target to get to 25% by 2030, which is fantastic. The success of the supermarket's Vermondo plant range has been a key driver, with sales of plant-based products outperforming meat alternatives. Okay. This must mean like other meat alternatives. By nearly 20%. Are Vimondo not meat alternatives? I think they are, right? Oh, Vimondo plants, maybe not. Oh, okay. So these are more like falafel tofu. Okay, that's plant-based meat. Okay, so this looks like it's a bit of both. But anyways, their own brand stuff that has done really well. And I think it's because it's cheap as hell, right? It's cheaper in a lot of cases than the equivalent animal products. And now this is not necessarily the case for a lot of these alternative proteins, particularly kind of the brand names, right? There's a lot of pound for pound, they can be much more expensive still than their animal product counterparts. But yeah, the own brand ones, and especially the Lidl own brand ones, I guess are doing very well. New products with prices starting from £1.49. Not sponsored by Lidl, by the way, but just wanted to share this good news because it's against a backdrop, as I say, there's a lot of plant-based sales not being as hot as they were a few years ago. And here's Lidl, who had this target to increase their sales by 400%, and they've absolutely smashed it. They've nearly doubled it, with sales that stuff 700% up from 2020. So well done to Lidl, and it's a good beacon for beacon of hope for plant-based. We also had the return of the Greg's vegan steak bake recently, which was very exciting also. So, it's not all doom and gloom for vegan products out there. Actually, I had another one here. Meat juggernaut JBS launches new plant-based company. This is today. The world's biggest meat company is launching a new leader in the European plant-based food. So this is actually a merger of Vivera and the Vegetarian Butcher. You might have seen either of those brands around. And it's now going to be the Vegetarian Butcher Collective. But it does say also in this article that they're going to be maintaining the separate brands. So you might not necessarily notice this on the shelves, but I think what it essentially is these companies are now going to come together and share technology, share resources, maybe they move their teams around and stuff like that. They're owned by the same company, right? JBS bought Vivera back in 2021 and bought the Vegetarian Butcher from Unilever earlier this year. So they're now going to bring them together, and the Vegetarian Butcher CEO Rutger Rosendahl says, "For me, this feels like the start of a bold new chapter, an opportunity to further accelerate the food revolution and release even more animals from the food chain by bringing tasty and nutritious products to consumers." So that's pretty pretty bold for a CEO who's just been acquired by the world's biggest meat company. More power to him, I guess. So this seems like good news. This is a merger of the Vegetarian Butcher and Vivera under JBS, which some people might have something to say about that, right? I think that from my perspective, we have to allow these big food companies to stop doing animal slaughter and start doing something else. And so, you know, I'm always one to celebrate, you know, the McDonald's plant-based burger, Burger King, whatever it may be. Okay, yes, these companies sell animal products and, you know, primarily sell animal products, but if we don't sort of allow them to move towards plant-based, well, what else are they going to do, right? They're just going to keep selling animals and lobbying in order to be able to do so, right? What we want to be doing is making opportunities in this space look as appealing as possible for the likes of JBS, frankly. They're going to put a load of resources into this now, and yeah, they're aiming to become the top brand of meat alternatives in Europe. And good luck to them. All right, guys, we've got... So I'm going to have a look at the chat real quick. Hey, Alicia, how are you doing? Canada has very little choice. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That sucks. With a little bit of luck, we'll see a massive reduction in meat consumption nationwide. That's right, Timo. Tim is my IRL buddy, by the way. Oh, I thought I modded you a minute ago, but let me give you. Ooh. There you go. It's a very small button I had to click. Good stuff. All right, guys, we've got Ask Yourself joining in about half an hour. I've got a few things written down that I am looking forward to talk to him about. If there's any topics that you guys want me to bring up also, feel free in the chat. I like talking to Ask Yourself. He's a very smart guy, and yeah, I get a lot of value from talking to him. He's recommended me a philosophy textbook, which I bought. Haven't opened it yet, but, you know, that's the next step. Let's see what else we've got here. I kind of want to... I don't know, I have time for that now. So I was going to say, I kind of want to watch Ask Yourself's video on Alex O'Connor.
Stream, happy to have...
No, I know what we'll watch. Oh my god, the solo res. My OBS will kind of stop working if I try to make it do too much, so... Ask Yourself is a vegan content creator, yeah. So this is a guy called Has Vegan, who I spoke to a couple of weeks ago, I guess. Yes, 2 weeks ago, this says, on his channel. And we were speaking about Vegan 2.0. I'm not sure if this was meant to be a debate. I didn't really come for a debate in this case, but no, it was a nice conversation. It was a nice conversation. I guess we have some implied disagreements on how, what best to prioritize in terms of how to go about veganism. But it's a very pleasant conversation. And actually, this would be quite a good preface to one of the topics that I had written down to ask yourself about later on. Because I think compared to a lot of vegans, I lean much more utilitarian, which is apparently not that fashionable. So we can get into a bit of that. I don't, as I've said on videos in the past, I don't think that Vegan 2.0 is a necessarily utilitarian perspective. I think that even if you're concerned about rights, you can be concerned about the quantity of rights, and so you want to maximize the amount of rights protected. So I think you can still have that sort of quantified view of deontological approach also. But anyway, let's I won't overcook this.
Have you here.
Thank you so much for having me on, Haz.
All right, so I guess the purpose of this
Love my fit here.
This live stream was to kind of just, I guess, talk about your concept of Vegan 2.0, which I have kind of looked a little bit into what it kind of entails. So I think maybe if you're fine with it, I think a good place to start might be for me to summarize my understanding of it and then see if maybe I have any misconceptions about it and kind of go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So the way that I understand this concept is basically not just focusing on excluding animal harm from our lives, from our consumer choices, but kind of orienting ourselves toward prevention of animal harm. And then also, I guess, like entailed by that and kind of by extension of that, a focus on effective activism.
Absolutely, yeah, that's pretty much spot on.
Okay, great. So I've seen you say that some people misunderstand this as a utilitarian concept. I'm wondering, I guess, why you think that might come about and what your response to that kind of a criticism might be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not necessarily that it's not utilitarian, but I think that the criticism of the Vegan 2.0 position as being because it's utilitarian, I don't think is exactly correct. I think that if you had rights-based ethics or anything else, I must say, when I listen to myself back talking, I always think, get on with it. To the extent that you're still concerned about the scale, you are still going to be aligned with most of what I'm talking about with respect to Vegan 2.0. So I think that some people imagine that if you have a deontological approach or rights-based ethics, that all sense of scale goes out of the window and you just get black and white, right and wrong. But I mean, as long as you still think it's worse to kill 2 chickens than it is to kill 1 chicken, you're still concerned with scale to some extent. And so I think you can talk about, more rights violations or rights being violated to a greater degree. Kind of cook once I start getting there. Degree and things like that. So even if you think of it in terms of animal rights instead of, utilitarianism, suffering, welfare, whatever you want to say, I still think it makes sense to focus on helping as many animals as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that I think both a utilitarian concept and a deontological rights base, etc. No matter even if you're coming at it from virtue ethics, I think they're all scalable, which is kind of the beauty of veganism. What I'm wondering is as someone who
I did the same enthusiastic nod in retrospect as well.
Wants to effectively advocate for animals and who doesn't want to just exclude animals from my consumption alone, but wants to, help prevent more harm from happening to other animals by advocating for non-vegans to go vegan and, minimize or ideally eliminate their consumption as well. Am I already vegan 2.0?
Oh, damn, yeah, Alicia, I was in that chat last night. I didn't get to the spicy bit, unfortunately. I'm gonna watch that stream back. Did he? Oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, I can't watch it back then. Well, I'll go and watch the debate at least. I mean, from what I saw, it looked kind of over the top, friendly fire. But again, I didn't see all of it.
I guess would be my question, and maybe I don't even know it.
Maybe so, yes. I mean, in one sense, you could say it's just sort of activism rebranded, right? And in a way, yeah, that's not wrong. It is mainly talking about going beyond, exactly as you said, excluding animal exploitation and cruelty, as a vegan society puts it, or animal suffering, or however else you might want to think about, what the precise. Yeah, I saw them talking about the intersectionalism stuff, and I thought, again, I was kind of floating around because I was doing stuff with my dog as well, so I honestly missed 90% of the spicy part of that conversation. It's a bad thing. The first half seemed fine. Natalie was good. Thing is, excluding, as it is in the definition of veganism 1.0, as I say, right, conventional veganism, traditional veganism, to preventing in vegan 2.0. So it really is a switch to thinking about, most of the animals that you can affect are not animals that you would have eaten, right? They're animals that other people would have eaten, perhaps, right? I think that really it's about saying, listen, if you've gone vegan, that's great, but it really is just the beginning. It's getting to zero. A lot of people think of it as, right? And part of why I like the idea of vegan 2.0 is because it's actually very difficult to get to exactly zero, right? When we talk about. Yeah, I mean, fair play to Gary for agreeing to that. Apparently he said he's not going to do many more conversations for a while, which is a bit of a shame. Medicines that have a little bit of milk powder, and I'm still going to. I really want Gary to. I can't believe he said when he spoke to Jeremy the other day, he said that he didn't realize how compelling or how widespread or whatever his speech had gotten until quite recently. I think he said something like that, or he didn't know how many people had gone vegan or something like that. I've seen there's a survey from a few years ago of 13,000 vegans that I guess is distributed through vegan groups online and stuff like that. And one of the questions is about people's original source of inspiration for going vegan. And Gary Yourofsky is named by 2.5% of the respondents to that survey. It's like 1 in 40 vegans is a Gary Yourofsky vegan. It's pretty wild. Take the medicine if I need it and stuff like that. And some vegans I see really, getting upset about this and losing sleep over it because they had a trace amount of whatever it might be. And I'm not saying that you should have a flippant attitude towards those instances, but it's just like trying to save a few pennies when you could be investing thousands of pounds. It's just, a lot of vegans seem to lose the sense of scale when you get fixed in on the getting closest to zero part. You can never actually quite get to zero, and so you just do increasingly larger sacrifices to make increasingly smaller gains. Whereas if you expand your view and say, oh yeah, my my computer broke, but during this call.
Oh no. Uh-oh.
Look at me,
Chris
go
is
beyond
frozen.
just trying to reduce my. Yeah, okay. I come back in like 2 minutes, so let me skip ahead.
Freezing, like maybe I'll see you.
All right. I do come back. Sharing things on social media, speaking up, I think is just huge. Our social fabric is just the sum of what all of us say. And yeah, those things are going to
help far more animals than what you eat personally, frankly. Like,
our social fabric is just the sum of what all of us say. Is that profound or just? I think profound.
we just don't compare
Got to back yourself.
to the amount of animals that you can help by doing activism, donating, and particularly doing it well and effectively. The number of animals that an average meat eater eats is just not that many. So the effect, the number of animals that you help by going vegan, therefore, you can help many, many times more animals again by going vegan 2.0.
Would you say that like it kind of, I guess, how can I say this? Like, pragmatically speaking, the effect that your choices have on real life animals is more important than the idea of feeling like you're not exploiting animals, or maybe even necessarily setting an example of not exploiting animals. For example, there's this, I don't know if you're familiar with Feathergate, but there was this whole kind of like, I don't know if you call it an uproar, but just some kind of controversy on YouTube about the idea of picking up a fallen feather and whether that would kind of constitute exploitation, and whether
Right.
somebody who would pick up a feather and use it for something like, I don't know, maybe trying to think of like putting in a vase in their house or something like that, if that would constitute, an exploitative practice.
Mhm.
And I think, people who are on the side.
I'll be interested to see my response here in retrospect, because I was thinking, God, this sounds like insufferable bollocks. I don't care about this at all. I can't imagine that I said it quite like that. But basically, that is my. I mean, as I won't repeat what I'm about to say, but it's just like so small fry compared to the stuff that you could be thinking about and doing. No, I agree. As based, I enjoyed this conversation a lot. He's a nice guy.
Side that, yeah, I mean, you can pick up a fallen feather. You're not exploiting anybody. Have been met with a lot of backlash by certain vegans claiming that, well, no, you're still using them as a product. You still haven't broken out of this mindset or mentality that animals' bodies are ours to use and instrumentalize, etc. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think there's a classic example of something which is just like completely pointless to get distracted by. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there might be some
I did say almost that.
entertainment value basically in having like a philosophical conversation about, well, technically would it count as exploitation if the feather's fallen off the bird, and then if you use the feather for some instrumental purpose, is that exploitation? It's an academically maybe interesting conversation for people who are really into talking about those technicalities of different ethical systems and stuff like that, but it doesn't help animals. It just doesn't. That's not helping any animals. And the thing that I often think about is, what kind of topics would I try to amplify if I was a double agent from the meat industry and trying to distract vegans and get them spending their time and attention on stuff which isn't really going to hurt my profits as a factory farmer, let's say. And stuff like this is like right up there, because like seriously, it just doesn't matter. Pick up the feather, don't pick up the feather, give a shit. Like it's not affecting very many animals at all. It really is affecting loads and loads of animals if you do.
Well, I did say give a shit. It's probably quite rude in interaction with this nice bloke. Also, I will say in retrospect, I mean, the thought that I just had while going off here and watching myself go off, he is talking about broader sort of mindset, which I guess you would say is upstream of harm. And the thought that I had is, it would be quite creepy or weird or wrong if you found like somebody's hair, a lock of somebody's hair, and decided to keep it, right? That which be sort of similar to the feather thing. And so, I suppose an anti-speciesist view would be like, well, why is that creepy and the other's not? I do still think that this is like not where we want to be putting our attention, frankly, but perhaps there's something more subtle here that I, didn't appreciate at the time.
But the thing is, it's quite kind of on one level repetitive, the kind of stuff that I talk about, because it's basically like give money to these like dozen charities, share pro animal stuff on social media, and we basically know what that consists of, and speak up and talk about things and do organized activism. It's not that entertaining in the same way that it could be, a more contentious philosophical conversation to go into the feather thing, but like it just doesn't, it's just not interesting to me because it doesn't seem to help any animals. Yeah, another final thing I'll say on that, there are some vegans who really like being vegan as a social identity and like being in this minority club, and like maybe, and I like this as a vegan, right, getting to feel morally superior to other people, right, who amongst us doesn't enjoy that.
Based.
But that's not the main point.
And to be morally superior, I should have said, not to feel.
Right, the main point is actually to help as many animals as possible. So you get people who want it to be a social club, and you get people who want it to be a social movement. And
hey, Jeremy, good to see you. Thanks for joining, dude.
To grow, and I want to get to the stage where, I'm not in an exclusive club of vegans, because that's great.
Yeah, your ears must have been burning, Jeremy. We were talking about your stream last night. I missed the best part, but alas.
To such an extent that it's not an interesting thing anymore, right? So yeah, I think it's very easy for us to get our attention sucked into these small fry issues, essentially, where there's much bigger things at stake, but it's just kind of, it's straightforward, so it's not that interesting to talk about.
Yeah. I think there is some, to some extent, I think a mindset shift is what we want to see in people. I think there is a danger of falling into
I'm debating whether to interrupt. I think the mindset is upstream of what we truly care about, which is the reduction in animal suffering. But
thinking that veganism is essentially like a consumerist choice, and that our spending is kind of the only determinant of whether or not animals are liberated from exploitation by humans. So I do think that, to some extent, we need to be thinking about different rights violations. Like something that I talk about is with dogs, for example, like in the sterilization of dogs, which I think is problematic in and of itself. It's not a calculation that people make without sacrificing bodily autonomy of dogs. Obviously it's to prevent suffering, future dogs, that kind of thing. But like they're not given vasectomies, for example. Their testicles are removed, for example, during the sterilization, like if we're talking about males. So yeah, I think there are a lot of instances where animal ethics, vegan ethics kind of play a part from a strictly, mindset based perspective. Like, how do we view other animals? I think there's a lot of things that I think are entailed, even like, bringing other animals into the fold socially, thinking of them as like he and she instead of like an it, for example, or using they pronouns. I do think it's important to kind of like bring veganism into the fold of social justice rather than viewing it as like just a consumeristic calculus. But yeah, I do think that
the face I'm making here is I'm thinking it is mostly a consumeristic thing. Most of the impact that we have on animals is through our purchasing or giving to charity, which is not really consumerism, but it's how you spend your money. I think that's what makes everything happen. Money is what makes the world go round, right? I mean, it's a bit of a bait phrase, whatever, but there's a lot of truth in that, right? If show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome, right? If there's an economic incentive to do factory farming, you're going to see a load of factory farms. And if there's an economic incentive to have impactful animal charities, you're going to see a lot of impactful animal charities. So I think that, frankly, how you spend your money is a lot of for most people as well, right? Just through purchasing of animal products. I mean, how many chickens are you gonna eat per dog that you have sterilized, right? It's just not on the same scale. Although, you can say that both things are legitimate issues. But anyway,
It kind of, there can be a point where
I think scale is really important. For me, scale is really important.
we end up in kind of a purity spiral if we're barring people from calling themselves vegan, or even like, excluding people from the vegan movement, from, excluding whatever that means, but excluding people or trying to cancel
Jeremy, we should talk sometime. We've never chatted together or streamed together. We're always just flirting in the live chat.
people, let's say, if they
Mhm.
don't agree with, certain political ideologies and things like that, like human rights related things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's another classic example of something that you would do if you were trying to sabotage the movement, right? You would try
Oh no, I didn't mean to say it quite like that, did I?
to amplify wedge issues. That's a classic thing that you do in politics.
Hold on. What did he say that prompted me to say that?
But excluding people or trying to cancel people, let's say,
Okay, sorry.
if
we're
they
agreeing
don't
here, we're
agree
agreeing
with,
It sounded really aggressive when I said that. Oh god, I hope I'm not. All right.
certain political ideologies and things like that, like human rights related things.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's another classic example of something that you would do if you were trying to sabotage the movement, right? You would try to amplify wedge issues. That's a classic thing that you do in politics, try to amplify wedge issues on the other side. So you try to say, again, if I was the nefarious, mustache twirling factory farm lobbyist trying to work out how to scatter the vegan movement and make them ineffective, I would want to get them fighting with each other about things that are not really going to be that relevant, and now they're not spending attention fighting me, right? So I think another thing that you would want to do is reduce as much as possible the number of people who are in this group called vegan activists by insisting that if you are in that group, you have to meet all sorts of other criteria. So let's get the meta out there and make vegans think and repeat, and we'll get good faith vegans who end up repeating these things that are bad faith but out there. You can't properly be vegan unless you're in favor of XYZ other issue, and if you're not going to be accepted. I mean, I don't really mind if there is backlash, or if people say that I've said the wrong thing or whatever. Like, it's not that, it's fine, right? It's just not that deep. Lots of people on the vegan Reddit, for example, are, I think Reddit is a great example because it's like an echo chamber machine, basically. It's like orient people around something that they agree on, and then you can essentially ban things that don't agree with that. It creates an echo, which there's a place for that. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's very functional, and I like the vegan Reddit spaces in general. But certainly there is something where the message that there's actually something that you can do which is much better than veganism to help animals is not necessarily going to be warmly received, because that's their whole identity and everything like that, right? So again, it goes back to that goes back to the identity point. But I think that the other things that you said about we want people to have to cross over with social justice and other related concepts, and for people, what did you say about some of the people who do?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Tim. I should get her on.
People do think of the right reason or something along those lines.
Basically just that, I think it's important not to think of veganism as strictly a matter of consumerist choices, but also just
Right.
in terms of like other choices that reflect a mindset shift where we're challenging human supremacy.
Right, with the language and everything like that. Yeah, so I think with that stuff, I agree, but only in a sort of instrumental way. I think, it's good, for example, that PETA thing that they had about like don't have speciesist language and don't say put all your eggs in one basket and stuff like that. I'm kind of like, fine. I mean, it might be there might be something in there about, when you kind of objectify animals through like habitual language use, it changes mindset and stuff like that. For me, there would have to be some sort of line that could be drawn between that and more animals getting knives in their throats. Right, that's ultimately what we're talking about, animals getting killed. And I don't think that some of the stuff that we could get distracted by is like
We had a real unflattering freeze there for a little while, hey?
anywhere near as important. There was a great thing in the UK, in a UK supermarket, where they had a Christmas card with some cute little pigs with Santa hats, and they're in the snow. And one of the pigs says to the other, "Don't worry, I hear that we're getting blankets this year." And there was a whole thing, pigs in blankets, right? And it was a whole thing about, vegans got offended by this, and I think the supermarket even ended up apologizing. What were we doing getting upset about the Christmas card when they had actual pigs like in the next aisle, like bits of chopped up pig? I mean, it's just so, it's something that would be very easy to get distracted by. And I think a little bit of my tinfoil hat on here, that such distractions are surely manufactured in order to have people go after them in such a way, right? Again, if you're the factory farm lobbyist, one of the things that you would want to do is get the vegans disagreeing on these wedge issues where you're going to get people taking either side and arguing with each other and falling out and saying that people aren't real vegans or whatever it may be, right? You're rubbing your hands together with the factory farm lobbies in those situations. So I think there's two things. Like, one, like, don't be a dick to other people who are clearly trying to be helpful and go in the right direction. There might be things that people are doing.
Yeah, and I hope that didn't come off as me telling Haz not to be a dick.
Ineffectively, or could be done better, and perhaps you can.
One shouldn't be a dick, I could have said.
And help people to do that, right? But if people are clearly doing something with good intentions and in the right direction, I think being encouraging mutually on that is worthwhile.
Boomers in the chat for Claire.
And then the other thing is, and I'm sure that you have learned this lesson as a small content creator, as have I. Don't worry if people are a dick.
He sits so still that I can't sometimes tell if his camera's frozen. It's just like so serene.
To some extent, right? It doesn't matter if you get backlash or if you get negative comments or whatever. Like, it's fine. Life goes on. It doesn't, like, that's just fine. It really is just fine. I think that needs to land for people, because so many vegans in particular would be much, much more vocal if they could just get that. It's fine. If you post a vegan thing and someone comments bacon, though, it's fine. That's fine. You don't have to respond to it. You can just either delete it or just ignore it. It's fine if people disagree with you, or if people even start commenting, say, "Oh, this is elitist and this is classist," or whatever. That's fine. They're allowed to think that. It's fine. You're not cancelled. You're not banned. You're not, right. Life goes on. People disagree with each other all the time. So that's the other thing with Vegan 2.0. Like, I do think that's good point, me. I do think that's something that needs to land. People imagine that there will be some great negative social consequence if they start speaking up and saying something that's obviously going to be unpopular. There's just not. There just isn't. Posting vegan things, I mean, people might ignore it. A lot of people won't, though. You'll be surprised if you consistently post vegan stuff on social media, how many people see it, even if they don't like it or interact with it. And if you post regularly, as we have been doing on the Vegan 2.0 series, you will, plant those ideas in people's minds and they will develop. I think it's so worth doing. And losing the fear of backlash or whatever it may be, or just people making fun of vegan posts. As I say repeatedly here, it is fine. It's a better system than Vegan 1.0. But it's fine if some people don't think that, right? If some people really are like, I'm just locked in on excluding exploitation. It really is all about me not consuming stuff. If some people want to just maximize for that completely and say bollocks to everything else, like, that's fine, right? I'd prefer if they did my thing, because I think it's going to help more animals. but it doesn't affect me. It doesn't. And I want vegans to, hear this. Don't be put off from saying what you think is right by people disagreeing with you, because that's life.
Based and true.
Yeah, I think to me, I guess my perception of this concept seems like perhaps it might be a little bit superfluous, just in terms of like,
I'm going to freeze right at 9 o'clock, aren't I? Another good bit of the debate. Ah, that's annoying. Hopefully it comes back. This computer's struggling. I'm getting a new computer soon. That'll be good. And this sucks. I'm not even on the tab to see if I'm actually still streaming. I assume I'm not. Fuck. This is right at 9 o'clock. That's really annoying.
if it's more or less synonymous with effective, like becoming an effective activist, I'm kind of feeling.
Hey,
Hey, your mic was a little weird there.
how's it going? Sorry, yeah, I've been my computer just locked up as I was locking onto this.
Oh, that's not good. Like it froze?
Yeah, it's kind of struggling with running OBS and streaming and everything else.
Time to come over to Linux. A better performance. It's not gonna crash as much if you're dealing with crashing or freezing.
Yeah, you know what? I think you'd like my brother. My brother's building me a computer currently. It's gonna be Windows, but you know.
Yeah, I'm not into the whole infinitely having my data harvested and having my computer bloated with Candy Crush and other trash, and having a start menu that simply closing and opening it repeatedly brings your CPU usage to 100%. Like, Windows is just trash. I think that it just has some kind of inertia and some kind of staying. I don't even know what values are guiding development at this point. I just have no idea. But over here in Linux land, we got freedom, we got liberty. It's pretty good. There's some good values over here.
What does it look like to interact
there's also
with?
Apple. Sorry?
Yeah, I've never really gone with the Apple desktop.
No, Apple is horrible.
Right, okay. What does Linux look
nice.
like to interact with, though? Is it?
I'll just say about Apple. Apple, the values are more like... Apple does have good hardware and some good software, but the thing with Apple is Apple's values are like wrap you in a multi-level walled garden of hardware and software that only works with itself, and then infinitely siphon money off of you. And also,
Right.
Apple users are just cringe. Like, they like little flashy, fancy looking things, but yeah, they're like corporate marketing victim peons.
Yeah, I mean the lock-in
Linux looks
thing,
however you want.
yeah, the lock-in thing you can kind of tell from iPhone, where you don't seem to be able to stop it giving you a notification saying that you need to upgrade, but you need more space, and therefore you have to pay for their monthly storage thing or whatever. Like, yeah.
Yeah, they try to embed you further and further into the ecosystem, and the further you get in, the harder it is to dig yourself out. In Windows, they'll upgrade your OS. Like, hey, here's the new OS. By the way, it like doesn't run on the old hardware. So they just like make your computer a brick with respect to the new OS. So you can either like have to buy a whole ton of new hardware, or at least a piece of new hardware, or just remain on the old version that isn't getting serviced anymore. And it's just none of this is a thing on Linux. And you asked what Linux looks like and feels like. It looks and feels however you want. If you want Linux to be like Windows, you can make it like Windows. If you want it to be like Mac, you can make it like Mac. And if you want it to be significantly better than both, just like minimal, clean, snappy, fast, you can achieve that. It is what you want it to be. It gives you freedom to create the system that works for you, aesthetically, functionally everything. No more getting siphoned off of by these companies. No more having your system bloated with trash. No more shit spying on you. You're just free from the bullshit. Plus better performance. Plus necromancer perk. So you have some old system that's like literally dead and like it hasn't been able to run anything Windows related for like a decade. Yeah, it'll run Linux just fine.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Damn. All right. Well, I've got a new Windows computer on the way, so you know.
Yep. You know my recommendation. Well, actually, if it's not obvious, my recommendation is to dual boot that system. So it is a Windows Linux split system. Work towards recreating your system in Linux while having Windows as a fallback so that you don't have any situation where you actually can't get work done. But yeah, then once you hit or get near feature parity, you're never going to want to be on Windows again. And then you'll at some point realize you just haven't been in the Windows partition for like a year or two, and you'll be like, oh, I may as well just delete that partition and reclaim the disk space.
Fair play. All right, well, maybe I will do that. It sounds like it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm not sure if I can handle that much freedom.
Yeah, well, I mean, people have different values. My view is basically that people who aren't on Linux are just getting cucked and don't realize how. And you can realize how and save yourself from it, or you can remain an ignorant cuck.
Well, I've been destroyed by Ask Yourself.
Sorry.
Good
I'm
stuff.
kidding. If it's not obvious,
Yeah,
I
got you.
believe the things I'm saying, but I don't think you're a cuck, though.
Sure. Not for that, at least.
Yeah, or anything else I'm aware of, unless you actually just identify as a cuck or something. In which case, that's actually fine.
In which
I think
case, that's
being
valid.
unintentionally, yeah, unintentionally a cuck at something you're not doing cuck as a fetish for is bad. But if you actually are just a literal cuck, I mean, you do you.
Maybe I have a fetish for getting cooked by Microsoft.
I've not heard of that one before, but it's possible. It might be out there. Might be able to find some porn associated with that. You'd have to troll the internet.
Yeah, if I can ever load it. Well, I messaged you a couple of days ago with some vague sort of thoughts about some ideas that we might chat about. Mainly around.
Sure. Are we live currently?
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have said that at the start. Yeah, sorry, we are. I'm on
That's
YouTube.
okay.
Yeah, we didn't
No worries.
say anything rude.
Okay.
Yeah, so and this is sort of like a cluster of ideas that I have around the theme of responsibility. And I guess I said to you, here we go. This is my message to you the other day. One idea I keep coming back to.
I read it and remember it. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Are you doing it for the audience? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me do it for the. Yeah.
I remember it though. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. One idea I keep coming back to is about individuals taking responsibility. For example, do you regard yourself as having a greater amount of responsibility, given that you have a good-sized platform, you're good at thinking and public speaking, etc.? I said I'd love to communicate to vegans that as individuals we have a responsibility to do more activism. And then there's also, I said I have the feeling that animal orgs with nice logos and websites, necessary as they are, can give the wrong impression that we've got this, when we really need scrappy individuals to volunteer, advocate, and give to charity. Any like reactions off the bat from that?
Well, I can't say I've thought a whole lot about responsibility in like I have in a sense like there's things I really think you shouldn't do if you have a platform. Like if you have a bunch of people listening to you, for instance, a one that gets talked about a lot for years now is like platforming people. I don't think that you should have someone on who's got like if you just an obvious case, like some like really strong like Nazi debater or something. Like you, for instance, Nick Fuentes, not a strong debater, but persuasive rhetorically. You'd have to know a certain amount of stuff to actually like hold it down and make him look like a retard, like someone like Avi has easily done.
Mm-hmm.
But it would, I think there would be I think that you have an obligation to not like let people like that basically co-opt your platform to promote like Nazism or something. So I guess I've thought more about responsibilities in a like negative way, like things that you shouldn't do. When it comes to positive obligations, I don't know. Like I guess I think I kind of think that you're neutral if you're neutral, and anything else on top of that is good. Is it good to do more activism? Yeah. Are you morally obliged to do more activism? Then I'm kind of like, well, what the fuck? What exactly do we mean by moral obligation? I'm not totally sure. I don't know. So I'm not sure if that gives you enough. And then the second part was about some other stuff. I don't know if we want to go into that yet.
Yeah, well, I guess we can split it. Yeah, obligation and responsibility are the same sort of category of thing, I suppose, right? If you have a responsibility, you're obliged.
Yeah. Is it just, do we just mean we have a really fucking strong preference for this thing? Because I think that's how, because I feel like I'm more comfortable using words like obligation negatively, like even in what I just said, right? Like I used it in the negative sense without much hesitation. But when we started thinking about positive obligation, I started wondering more like, well, what exactly do we mean? I guess there's things that are more uncontroversially going to be obligations, as in like on greater amount of notions of obligation, these things are going to be obligations. So maybe it's kind of, maybe that's why I'm more ready to use the term on negative things. But yeah, if an obligation is just something like an extremely strong preference to a point that we would feel like disdain for someone who doesn't do that thing, I don't really feel like that about doing basically any positive shit for anything. Like I don't feel like I don't feel like it's good to make the world better, and you're like being neutral. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what to say about that. I just, maybe you can get something out of what I'm saying though. Like I feel more strongly about it negatively. I'm not sure what I want to say about positive obligations. I don't like. Sorry.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
Oh, I was going to say, is this what's called supererogatory, where it's sort of not quite the opposite of obligatory, but it's like going above and beyond or something like that?
Isn't supererogatory when something supererogatory? Isn't that when something is good but not an obligation?
I guess so. Super.
So I definitely think that. Yeah, we can look it up. I definitely think that doing vegan activism is good. I mean, that should be obvious. Like, of course, I think it's good. But calling it an obligation or calling it supererogatory, those are both saying where it sits with respect to obligations. Like, it's not an obligation; it is an obligation. I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about obligations in a positive sense here. I'm open to being kind of talked into it. It's just not an angle I've thought a lot about, and I don't immediately have any inclination to say that something is an obligation, except certain things that are obviously bad. I want to say, like, you're definitely obliged not to do those things.
So the other part that I'm finding kind of interesting thinking about this is then like extent of obligation or extent of responsibility. And, you know, as I said in the message to you, you know, you've got however many subscribers you've got on YouTube, and you're a good speaker and thinker and debater and so on. And so maybe given all of those things, if we do have some sort of obligation in this direction, you know, people with more abilities might have greater obligations. And you could think about, I'm kind of thinking of this as I go now, so might not be quite fluent, but you could think about the negative case of that, where, you know, if somebody is like mentally handicapped, for example, such that they lack the ability to observe some normal kind of social etiquette about not putting your elbows on the table or whatever it may be, we kind of don't think that they're necessarily obliged to follow that because they lack the ability.
Yeah, but someone who can, we have an expectation there. Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely agree. It's obvious someone is not obliged to do a thing that they're just like incapable. Well, what do we mean by obliged though? Because if by obliged we just mean we have a really strong preference for them to do it, then maybe on that notion they are going to be obliged. But like, I don't know. I don't. When I see someone who's like mentally disabled, who's not, you know, and that's leading to some kind of like frustrating or bad, some behavior that'd be like annoying or bad if someone else did it. Oh, I don't know. It really is going to depend what we mean by obligation. Like, of course, I have a preference for them not to do that thing. I'd rather not have the bad thing happen. But I also don't really, at the level of their character, judge them that
Mhm.
much or at all, really, because they don't understand. So maybe we also want to talk about kind of like separating characters and action a little bit. But I
Yeah,
don't know. Sorry,
that's
I don't have very I don't have really views about this. So I'm sort of similar to where you're at. Like I don't know. I can spitball, but it's not like if you ask me something that I've spent a lot of time thinking about, where I'm gonna have like
yeah,
good
yeah,
thought
no,
through answers. So I guess the
no,
audience
that's
should
fine.
take it with a heavy grain of salt. See if you can think of something better for yourself. Because I've not thought a lot about this.
Fair enough. Yeah, good disclaimer. And so, I mean, the thing that I'd written down in my notes to say to you is, on one hand, you are just a guy, and if you don't have, you don't seem to have on the face of it any special responsibility, or let's assume that you're not starting with some special responsibility, or that you don't currently have. You, if you wanted to decide to sack this off and go snowboarding for the rest of your life, you could. Um, and yet, I can't help feeling that if you did that, it would be such a loss to potential numbers of animals that could have been saved and so on, that I almost want to say that you do have some sort of obligation. But it also seems that I can't. I'm using you as sort of example case here, but you can think about other cases. You can't really. I can't oblige you to do it, right? I can't make you do it. I might feel that you have an obligation to do it, but I suppose there's also something about like a social obligation versus, certainly a legal obligation, right? I'm sure there's other forms that we might think of.
Yeah. Um. hmm.
Like, for example, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you think about like, maybe Joey Carbstrong is a good example to say because he's like so into it. You can't really imagine him not being into it, right? But let's say that he woke up one morning and said, oh, I can't bother with this anymore. I'm still going to be vegan, but I'm just going to, I can't bother making content or whatever. I'm just going to stop reaching however many 100,000 people, It would seem we're going to then be on a path where there's that many more animals being killed and so on, right?
Yeah, but what are we like? I agree, it's a loss, but what are we trying to get to? Like, I just feel like really, if we want to have a conversation, if what's really important to you is whether we want to apply the word obligation, I think we just need to talk clearly about what obligation means, and then look at the cases. Like, I can do the vague, intuitive kind of passover, but I'm not locking in on a particular sense of the term. I'm just spitting out like, I don't know, little like fleeting thoughts about it. Like, if we really wanna ask that question systematically, we have to start formulating like what we mean by obligation.
Okay.
And I'm not saying it has to. I'm not saying we have to. The question isn't necessarily resolved by definition. Like, I'm not saying.
Yeah.
Just, I think we need to have enough clarity on what we mean that like, if you have two, if what an obligation is too open for interpretation,
Hmm.
and it's not clear what the fuck is an obligation. That just applies to anything. If what a dog is like insanely open for or I don't know what word I use, but then you have it's like, how do you tell what the fuck a dog is? So I'm not saying you need to dial it in to a point that you can, like, I don't know, like, perfectly class everything, but we need to like shrink down the space a bit so it's kind of more clear what we're talking about. And that might go a long way to answer the question. It might be that once we clear up what we mean, that either does answer the question or makes it like way more approachable, and we sort of know what empirical things we want to look at to ask if something's an obligation.
Hmm. Yeah. It's going to depend on your notion of obligation, basically, your notion of responsibility. I mean, perhaps that is, if it is a matter of sort of what degree of preference that represents, perhaps it is, perhaps it is subjective and unique to each person. Some people might say that it is an obligation, and some people might say that it's not. I guess that
Well,
is.
that's just using different wait, are we just using different senses of the term there though? Because what we want to ask is for some particular sense, whatever like you might mean by obligation when you ask the question, for instance, is something an obligation? We don't want to go, well, on like it is and isn't an obligation because in one sense it is and in the other it isn't. Like that's not a real tension. That's like just a semantic thing. Yeah, like what I mean, what do you think you mean when you say something's an obligation?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking with respect to your question is do we just mean a strong preference? And I know this goes into what would you say, moral anti-realism, right? And your view is essentially that morals boil down to preferences, right?
Well, yeah, so it's correct that I'm an anti-realist and I'm going to be if your notion of obligation isn't compatible with anti-realism, we'll have a deeper issue to deal with. But there's a whole ton of different notions that are all available to the anti-realist. So it's not like anti-realism dials you into like a specific notion of obligation.
My feeling is that the if it is a case of like where one draws the line on this continuous scale of preference, and beyond a certain point we're going to say it's actually an obligation, then I mean, is this, not that I would necessarily want this to be the case, but just sort of conceptually, is there some room there for people to have just differing points where they draw the line and still be talking about
what do
roughly
we mean
the same?
by different?
Well, you could still be talking about roughly the same thing, right? But it's just going to be the case that one person might say, "I think that is an obligation," and the other might say it's not, even though we're talking about the same sort of dimension of what an obligation would be.
It's gonna depend on if the point you dial it into on the spectrum is actually part of the definition of obligation or not. Like if you define obligation such that there's some kind of spectrum to it, like light intensity or something like that, then like everywhere along the spectrum is just has some level of light intensity associated with it or something. You might have a concept like that. But if you bake into the concept of obligation a certain threshold, then you'll not be able to say that different things on the spectrum are both obligations because two different people have different kind of like thresholds of what they care about or something like that, because we've defined obligations such that it just corresponds to the one threshold.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I think I see what you mean, yeah. So if it's like beyond...
Want me to be clarifying? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go on.
Yeah, there's you could define a concept that has to do with a spectrum, and that concept may or may not have baked into it being at a specific place on the spectrum. If you have that baked into it, then, you know, if you have one person who's got, I don't know, if you have two people with two different thresholds, one of them, let's just use obligation, one of them saying it's an obligation, one isn't, but we've defined the word obligation so that it has a specific threshold associated with it. Well, then there's like one of those people is right and the other is wrong, assuming one of them is talking about that threshold point. They're not both wrong. There's probably a more concise way to say this, but you can have a concept like what's like, you know, let me think of how to be a bit more clear about this.
Can I suggest an example? You can tell me if I'm on the right tracks.
Sure.
You might have like, actually, this is a good example, like how loud a party is allowed to be. Like beyond a certain point, your neighbours are allowed to call the police, but then it's on a spectrum, and you know, different neighbours might disagree about how loud is too loud.
That's a great example.
Is that good? Okay, good.
Yeah. An even simpler one is just get rid of the too loud. Let's just talk about loud. What constitutes loud? So two people might have different thresholds. One might say like 50 decibels. One might say 60. But okay. Sorry, just let me get my thoughts together. Yeah, right. You have one person who says it's loud at 50 decibels, one person who says it's loud at 60 decibels, and the question is who's correct? And if you have a notion of loudness that is tied to a specific point,
Mhm.
then you can have a case where one person is correct and the other person is incorrect.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the other case though. Sorry, my mind's a bit fried.
That's okay.
So yeah, I'd have to think about the way to articulate exactly what I'm trying to say, but maybe we can just bring it back to home base. Like with all of these things, the point is just here's an easy thing that we can say about it, because I'm kind of trying to make a further point, and I'm not exactly sure how to articulate it, but the basic thing we can say is that you might get an answer to whether something is loud or not by definition, that given that definition, you say a certain person is correct about what loudness is, and you say a certain other person is wrong about what loudness is, or whether a given thing is loud or not. But I mean, is this just going to be the case with whatever definition? Could you make a concept where you could make a concept that in some way like involves their subjectivity or something? But yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying. There's a definition for loud, and something either meets that definition or not. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck I'm trying to say here. Like with obligation, it's the same thing. It's like you define it in a certain way, and this is why I'm kind of saying like you need to sort of ask what you mean by obligation. Because that gives us necessary framing for answering questions about what is or isn't an obligation.
I got you.
Is the question like whether two things can be an obligation at once on the same notion or something like that?
No, I think that was a helpful clarification as to just like, I'm not sure exactly what my question was. It was something about like, is it legitimate? I guess you've just said it basically could boil down to like different people could have subjective thresholds for what they consider to be loud or obligatory or whatever it may be. Or there could also be like some objective threshold where now, the police are going to turn up outside my house with their sound measuring device and say, okay, it's 55 decibels and therefore, right, whatever it may be. So there's some correct answer there. I guess that in the case of...
But even...
Oh, go on.
There's always a correct answer, right? Like you define the concept and it's just either loud or not. It's just like with morality. Like this person means this by good, this person means that by good. On this notion of goodness, it's moral. On that one, it's not. It's the same thing with this. It's the same thing with any concept. Okay,
yeah. So I think in the analogy to responsibility or obligation, to swap out the units that we'd use to measure, right? We're not going to measure in decibels anymore, but we're going to measure in something like utils or whatever, like harm cause, something like that.
Sure.
And then I suppose you would say, or you could say, if there is a sufficient amount of harm caused, of rights violations, whatever it may be, associated with some particular thing, then beyond that point we're going to say it's obligatory. Would that be?
Yeah, and then that you've got a notion, according to that notion, you can say whether some given thing is obligatory or not. Yes.
Okay, yeah. And it's then very difficult to ask, isn't it? Like, what's the 55 decibels here? Like, what's the level of harm reduction or whatever?
Yeah, but thinking clearly about this shows you what you're actually trying to do when you say that, though. Like if we just mean the point at which you have a really strong preference against it, it's just that's some like introspective journey for you to go on, basically. Like there's not a right answer to what's too loud. There's not a right answer to there's not a stance independent answer, right? Too loud it's like a judgment about the thing. It's relative to someone's point of view.
Yeah.
Unless, again, like it just fucks. It's how you define it. Like if you dial in the notion with respect to someone's point of view, you can say something is loud or not with respect to that, or moral or not with respect to it. Same. I mean, it's always like that. But if you ask, hey, here's two notions of loudness, which is the correct notion? There's not a correct notion in a stance independent way. There's just two notions. What would it mean for one to be correct over the other? Correctness is just with respect to a stance.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think here. So I think this is the direction then. Or actually, there's another kind of part to this as well. So I was about to go on to say, if it's the case that activism will help or save, or whatever, however you want to put it, many more animals than veganism, and it's the case that veganism is obligatory, and it's the case that the obligatory scale is sort of corresponds to the amount of suffering prevented, then it would have to be the case that the activism is going to be obligatory, right?
We'd have to write out that exact argument, but if I'd have to see that exactly. Sorry, I'm not sure if that's the case.
Okay, yeah. So
how's the argument run? It's like, if it's over this level, it's like you can make something like that work and be like, if it's over this level of harm, then it's an obligation. This thing is over that level of harm, so it's an obligation. But we'd have to set it up and be careful with it, because you might generate a thing where there's like a whole ton of obligations, none of which could any individual meet, or like something like that. I don't know. You might not want a consequence like that.
well,
You
if
just
I write
define
this
it in
out,
terms
will
of
I
some.
bring it into being, and then
Maybe
I'll
see.
unleash some unintended consequences. I never.
I want to ask you why this is important to you, though. Why is a question like this important? Because for me, a question like this is all like, I find it like kind of like, it's fine talking to you about it, but I find it kind of like boring almost, and uninteresting. I'm not sure like what we get out of answering it. Like, what's the point of something like this?
Yeah, it's a fair
Cares,
question.
I guess. Yeah.
I think it started from. I guess I'm just thinking about the notion of responsibility is what I started thinking about this, and we all feel that we have some amount of responsibility to do the right thing, and then there's where do you draw the line and so on. And now I'm thinking I'd like to sort of sense check the argument that maybe activism is more obligatory than veganism.
More obligatory than veganism? You
Yeah.
mean activism plus veganism is more obligatory than veganism? Because presumably we would say that, given a choice of being a like carnist fucking activist for veganism versus like just being a vegan, probably we'd prefer someone be a vegan.
See, I'm
and
not
do
so
vegan
sure.
activism but not be a vegan.
I think it's going to depend
Really?
on. Yeah, I think it's good. And actually, this is an interesting disagreement to have, because I think this is, for me, it would depend on. We're basically talking about like one set of abstract actions that will, hurt or help X number of animals, and another set of abstract actions that will help or hurt Y number of animals. And if Y is bigger than X, then that one's then the second set's better than the first set, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's fair. I see what you mean. That's reasonable.
Yeah, so I think the obligation thing is like
sure.
something like. So I'm gonna write this out to try and be sort of precise about it.
Yeah.
You can watch me struggle to formulate this. You can watch the YouTube stream, by the way, if you want to see what's going on the screen.
Sure.
Let me link it to you in Discord.
Got it. It's good.
Oh, you got it? Nice.
Yep.
So it's like, let's see. Actions are obligatory to the extent that they. I'm going to put reduce suffering, but you can substitute in whatever your preferred normative framework. Which is in they reduce suffering, and and I want to say, effective vegan activism reduces suffering to a greater extent than, let's say, personally observing veganism. And we have the idea then, personally observing veganism is obligatory, let's say. Or is this going to get weird with obligatory to the extent, and then I'm saying, or like past the line of obligatory?
Well, no, part of why I didn't have trouble agreeing there is because you gave reasoning that, at least to me, it sounded like it was going to not matter what word you substitute in for obligatory.
Okay, yeah. And so then these three give us...
With anything, you can make an...
Have I lost connection, or did we just stop talking at the same time? Oh no, we did. Okay.
Oh no, I was giving you room to talk. No, like, because anytime you can make an a fortiori argument. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. A fortiori, yeah. But the point is, like, if X qualifies, then Y definitely qualifies, because Y has the thing that qualifies X to a stronger degree. Like, if I'm tall, and I don't know, some fucking basketball player's got to be tall. Like, if I'm 6'2" and he's 6'8" or something, right? Because tallness is is determined by it's determined by your height, whether you're tall or not, and I qualify as tall and he is taller. So you can, with things like that, that could be with obligatory, that you could just substitute in any word, and an argument like that will work.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's
see what you've written. Actions are... Yeah, no, I might disagree with some part of it, though. Like, actions are obligatory to the extent that they reduce suffering. I don't really agree with that. Effective vegan activism reduces suffering to a greater extent than personally observing veganism. Yeah, I think so. I don't know exactly how... I mean, it's logically possible. I don't know how easy it is to do effective activism while not being a vegan. I mean, I guess maybe a lot of people don't end up asking if you're vegan or not. Yeah. But that too seems plausible to me. Like, you can... Like, if... I mean, you're compare, like, say that you dedicate your whole life to creating at least 2 vegans or something like that. Like, you can probably create more vegans than you can probably create a greater... There's a bigger ceiling on it. You can only do so much consumption reduction yourself. There's more room to make an impact by persuading other people. So if you do that well, you can do more like that. So I like, 2 seems like, I assume 2 is true. Like, yeah, because effective activism just means a whole... Like, what is really effective activism? That's just you make a whole ton of people vegan, and obviously a whole ton of people going vegan has more impact than you going vegan.
Yeah, I think the effective
personally observing veganism...
it's defining that you're doing something that is impactful. The effective is important, I guess.
I'm not sure I follow. Sorry, again.
Just the word effective is important in this second premise, because otherwise it's like, well, who knows, right?
Sure. Yeah. I might not exactly be dialing in with what you mean, but it matters what our... I don't know. It matters what our words mean generally, but effective activism reduces to a greater extent than personally observing. Like, all I'm thinking here is, like, if effectiveness is how many people it makes vegan, you can make more vegans by going out and doing activism than just going yourself vegan. Because the latter is hard capped at 1.
Yes, exactly.
The former is just, in principle, it could be... If effective enough veganism is just like, or activism is just you say something and everyone instantly goes vegan.
Right.
So yeah. Personally observing veganism is obligatory. Yeah, again, I don't know exactly what we mean by obligatory, but, like, I'm inclined to agree with this, because I think it's the kind of thing that, like, across a whole ton of different notions of obligatory, veganism is going to be. So I'm like pretty friendly to 3, even without knowing exactly how we're dialing in obligatory, just because it'll hold over a large range of notions of obligatory.
We'll go back to 1,
then 4 is...
But go on 4.
I don't know if it comes back to 1, but it just comes down to what we mean in both 1 and 2 when we talk about the word obligatory. But I'm being... There's a lot of times when you get a case where it's like, look, there's a whole ton of notions, but they all kind of converge on X, and those are easier to agree on without knowing the notion. But then there's cases where it's like, there's a lot of variance you get in the answer to this thing based on the notion that you use, and then it gets more important to know what the notion is with some detail. And then 4 is the conclusion. Effective vegan activism is obligatory to a greater... Yeah, right. So this is... I mean, you'd have to do a little tiny bit of tweaking to make it, like, formally valid, but this is going to easily translate to something formally valid, so I don't have any problem with the validity of the argument.
Nice.
And then it's just really premise 1. I don't accept premise 1. Actions are obligatory to the extent that they reduce suffering. No, I don't know about the "to the extent" language. Like, I don't know if I think... Yeah, I'm not. I guess I don't feel confident about one, but I would grant some like modified version of one where it's like something is obligatory if it's like past some certain threshold of being
Yeah, if it
negative.
reduces suffering to a sufficient extent, basically.
I don't know if it's about suffering reduction or eliminating your own personal contribution. Like I'm not a utilitarian. I don't think like a utilitarian.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with one. I know that there's cases where if you are personally generating enough suffering, you absolutely are obliged to stop. I'm very comfortable saying things like that. But I don't know if I'm comfortable saying that it really comes down to if you are the source of the suffering to me. That is like very important to me. There'll be utilitarians who like don't care about this kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
to me it's just like, look, it's good if I want to go and prevent like someone else from doing a bad thing, but it's necessary that I don't do it. Like that's sort of the kind of way I'm inclined to think. So given that, I'm sort of not comfortable with one.
Okay, that's really interesting to have like pinpointed that point, because this is a disagreement that I find myself knocking up against in different vegan communities and thinking, oh, aren't we all utilitarians here? But I guess that's
Well,
not
yeah,
that
you're EA, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because EA, I don't know the community well, but I understand them to be basically like utilitarians, and anyone who's like steeped in that kind of community is going to be probably pretty utilitarian friendly. And I don't like not care about utility. Utility is like a massive important thing for me. And I will say that reducing suffering is an obligation for you, even if you're not causing it once the threshold is crazy enough. Like, for
Yes.
instance, if I can prevent all murder on Earth by like walking across the room right now and like pouring a glass of water, doing some like trivial action, I 100% am obligated to do that. So
Right.
I'm not gonna say that I guess I'm kind of carving out things that I will and won't say, but I don't know exactly. I can't give some like overall view. Well, I mean, I could talk about. I do think my preferences roughly align with like threshold deontology, because I guess we are just kind of getting at normative ethics at this point. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the point is just that like I'm not going to only say that negative things are obligations. I'm going to much more easily say that negative things are things about your own eliminating your own personal contribution to something bad. I'm going to be way quicker to call those kind of things obligations than doing stuff to fix what other people are doing that are wrong. But if the gap, if the equation of like how easy it is to stop it and how bad it is, if those things are like dialed in right, then I will start calling things obligations that you are not personally doing, because it's just like what kind of an asshole wouldn't end fucking like cancer if they could do it by like taking a breath of air? Like,
Yeah.
obviously you're obliged to fucking take the breath of air, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting because it does get so. There's like a version of the trolley problem in here, isn't there, where you flick the switch at a certain point and kill the one person and save the 5 people. What's your intuitions on that kind of exercise?
Depends how many people.
Where's the line?
So at the low level, do you know what well, I don't think I need an answer to that. Do you understand roughly what threshold deontology is?
Yes, I do. I've heard you talking about it, and in particular, I remember you talking to Vorsh about it and kind of coming to it almost ends up at the same thing as rule utilitarianism, kind of from a different direction, right?
They're distinct views. They could seem similar, but they're not the same. Well, let's just talk about what threshold ontology is roughly. So just to be clear, I like at a meta-ethical level, as you've noted earlier, excuse me, I'm an anti-realist. So these normative systems, I think, really all they are generalizations about the kind of preferences we have. And I think the best generalization that I've come across is threshold deontology. I don't know that it's perfect. Yeah, the view is roughly there's like some deontic concerns, whatever those might be exactly. Maybe it's like about autonomy, or I don't know. I care a lot about like freedom. I think really a lot of it is about just not being fucked with. Like I feel kind of like libertarian about it. So I don't know. There's some deontic values there, though. Whatever exactly they are, we know they're not utilitarian, basically. But I will. And this is also what differentiates it from rural utilitarianism. I will, even in a case where utility is maximized by some action, if that action comes up against one of the deontic things I care about, however exactly you formulate them, I will have a preference to not do the thing. So, for instance, the trolley case, and you have, it's like maybe 2-1, 5-1. Absolutely no, it's not okay to flip it to just murder some guy. That's fucking completely insane as far as I'm concerned. But if it's a million, or trivially, if it's a googleplex, obviously at some point it's like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy to not, like, you got to sacrifice that person. There's too many people who will die if you honor their like personal autonomy or liberty or whatever it is exactly you're caring about there. And like the connection to rural utilitarianism, rural utilitarianism, basically the idea is that there's rules that, if you follow them, overall the effect will be to maximize utility, but locally they seem like sometimes not utility maximizing or something like that. Like there's rules like do not kill, and it's not like we might accept that kind of rule, but with the rule utilitarian, if you really dial in everything and you say, yep, it's logically impossible for this to have any cascading negative consequences, like everything, no one ever finds out, blah, 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 should the rapist rape the woman who doesn't find out about it. The rule utilitarian, once there's no basis to honor the rule, because the rule is no longer tied to utility in the hypothetical, you just get more utility out of not following it, well, now you're not committed to the rule. So you can generate cases where threshold deontology and rule utilitarianism will give different answers. Like the case of rape, for instance. There's a rapist who gets pleasure out of rape. If you have a problem with rape, then you're going to look at the utilitarian, the rule utilitarian, whatever, whoever's the threshold deontologist is going to look at that, and they're assuming they have a deontic concern for like something that involves rape, basically.
Sure.
They are going to say, no, it's not okay. Even if she's passed out, even if she never finds out, dial in whatever things you want such that this rape like maximizes utility for the rapist. It's just not okay to rape. Rape is bad. The rule utilitarian might say, yeah, of course rape is bad. If we allow rape, then like, you'd have people like scared to go out at night. You'd have like, you'd have a lot of resentment and apprehension in the society. Like they'd point out all these bad consequences. But then if you say to them, okay, all those consequences that are the basis for your rule, in this hypothetical, they're not the case. Now is it okay to rape? Not only is it okay now, it's good for them, right? But the threshold deontologist is just going to say, no, rape, not good. Don't rape.
Yeah, so I think, starting with not being fucked with, I think, is a pretty strong point then. It does seem like you could kind of get to the Googleplex people on the other track in the case of like vegan activism. Is there something about action versus inaction here? Like, are any actions going to be obligatory, or are you only thinking of that in a sense you're obliged to not do things?
No, remember my example with the water, where it's not like you're obliged to go and pour the water or take the breath of air, because it's like the ratio. It's just you have two inputs. You have how fucking much suffering you reduce, and you have how easy the thing is. And if you make the former large enough and the smaller small enough, then you start looking like a complete fucking absolute lunatic if you don't say, yeah, that thing is obligatory. Whatever exactly we mean by obligatory. I am quicker to call negative things obligations, but I do think there are positive obligations. Those are some kind of trivial examples we can generate in like a thought experiment.
Yeah, that's interesting. So if somebody was sufficiently good at doing vegan activism, such that there's all these millions of animals that are going to be saved if they are not doing it, I guess you could say, well, the activism still might be a lot of effort, right? which is relevant here, right?
Yeah.
You know, the ratio, I think, is
Yeah.
the correct way of thinking about it.
Yeah. But you tip that ratio enough, yes, it's an obligation for them to do veganism. Again, whatever exactly we mean by obligation.
Yeah, you might be near
Do
that
activism,
threshold,
sorry.
buddy. You've got 20K subs over here. you might be obliged to start giving them something again.
Well, you know my view. I actually wish that I had the time to be doing that, but it's I literally just can't. I'm not in a financial position where it's a thing I can do. So I'm doing this degree right now that eats up all my time. I'm working on building up some business stuff because it's just yeah, it's I don't this is a whole other talk. We could get into this, but I don't want to go too off the rails. I've been sustaining working on this code and all this stuff related to Ask Yourself behind the scenes for like quite a while. Like there's tens of thousands of lines of code. There's so much stuff. I've been working my ass off, but there's just, and I know you've tried to help with this by helping me with the funding thing, and that's a whole story, but it's just so much work, and I'm realizing that I'm getting like absolutely, this connects to burnout, I guess, but I'm just ground to the bone. There's nothing in me. I can't do it. And it's really purely financial. If I had money, it would be a non-issue. I'd be making a ton of content. It really is that simple. If you economically oppress a person sufficiently, there's some point where like they're just not going to be able to be productive in those ways. And that's basically where I'm at. So yes, if you are sad to see a project like Ask Yourself sort of end up on its last legs or like effectively dead, like it's only ever really going to get resurrected if I get some of this business stuff going and can get into a better financial position. But if you don't like seeing that kind of thing, you should have a problem with our economic system, and you should want something like UBI. You should want something like some kind of subsidies or some kind of encouragement for people who are doing intellectual or creative or ethical, moral kind of work. I think the fact that our society doesn't provide those things and that people just have to find some way to also have money at the same time, then burn whatever remaining free time they have on these things, and if they don't want to do all that other stuff that totally eats up all their time and destroys their motivation, leaving them with like nothing left in them except to like relax at the end of the day, then they get thrown, literally, this is our society, thrown on the street to die. That's where we're at right now as a society. So that's all just deeply disgusting, and if you don't like that and you wish people like me were able to do more, yeah, you should want something like fucking UBI so that we're not in that trade-off.
Interesting. Were you not making money off of your YouTube channel?
I was making money. Like it depends what point you're talking about. There's a point where I was making a living off of it. Nice. But especially when I went to school, and well, I don't know how much I want to get into it, but
yeah, get into it. Yeah,
that's led to a huge decrease in content output. And there's some people who, I mean, they're kind of crazy, but they've just stayed the whole time and just patroned. And I know some of them, and I appreciate them.
Nice.
And that has made things a bit easier. But what was it that you asked? School? What? I forgot the exact question.
Were you not making money from your YouTube channel? Because it seemed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, sorry. So I was making enough to get by, though it would kind of fluctuate. And one time I had a big fluctuation where I was like, what the fuck? Now I can't have rent. I was like fine last month, and now I'm just like annihilated. So yeah, just basically the whole reason I initially went to school was because I was like, well, it was basically, I really liked the YouTube. I liked having my time free. I liked to be able to focus on intellectual and creative stuff. My output was high. I was doing a lot. But I didn't like that it wasn't much money. It's like you got enough, but it's kind of inconsistent, and like it was good for a long time, but sometimes it would blip and I'd be like, oh, what the fuck? And then also just seeing like having my stuff censored and having videos taken down and seeing it happen to others, seeing channels deleted, and realizing really that YouTube is just this like unaccountable black box where you can have your life ruined by someone whose face you never see and who's never with no recourse, and where they're never held to account or anything, totally arbitrarily. That I was like, okay, well, this is just irrational to do this. I need to like, what happens if that happens? I go work at a fucking fast food restaurant. I need to actually have valuable skill sets. So that was like the whole original reason. Well, not the whole. There's other reasons, but it's like basically why I stepped away from it in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I do have a feeling there would be a tragedy if, when you finish school, you went into some office job or whatever else you might do.
Oh, I wouldn't. I would never do that. I literally would sooner commit suicide. I see no.
Okay.
I mean, look, lots of people have the psychology where they can do that, and that would work for them. I would hate my life and want to die. It would like I have the skill set. I have a software engineering degree. I'm doing the master's in computer science right now. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's jobs out there. I just don't. I have absolutely no interest in any of it. So for me, it's just the real pathway is like social media stuff and YouTube and all that. That is a thing of passion, and maybe eventually I'll get money from that. But trying to cobble that together to make money in this, it's just fucked, and I don't want to do that. The path for me is I need to get to some form of like self-sustenance and some kind of something like passive or near passive income, which I know that's a bit of a meme term, but it is actually very achievable with some computing and programming knowledge. And I have some kind of schemes in the work. And then when I can have a proper money generating thing, I will naturally gravitate back to making content. Again, the barrier is just financial. It's not desire. I have the impulse to make videos all the time. Sometimes it's enough that I sit down and do it if my schedule is free enough and I'm annoyed enough. Like I made one on Alex a little while ago.
Yeah,
So
I
I
was
was just
gonna
a
watch that,
retarded.
yeah.
That was frustrating. Yeah, but most things don't clear that threshold. So yeah, I mean, it's just purely financial. If the financial stuff is at some point resolved, which I think I can get it into that state. I think it's just going to take a few years. Naturally, once I have free time, I will just be making content and doing all the things I like to do when I have free time, making music, you know. So I don't think I don't know what to say. You should. It's not like I'm gone. I just need to get into a better position. I likely will. It's just going to take a while. So
That's cool. That's cool. I'm sure people would be glad to see you back. I mean, it feels like,
yeah.
we were speaking a bit about grant funding for your platform. It feels like it would be a worthwhile investment for activism funders, vegan funders, to more or less pay you to do YouTube.
Oh, I mean, I totally agree. I think my content's valuable. I think that if someone wants to benefactor that shit, I could do a lot. But also, I'm not really comfortable with that because
You'd end up
benefactor
having to have
is
certain targets. You've got to publish a certain amount of videos per week and stuff like that.
oh that would be well a certain amount of content like at a yearly level or something like that. What like there are like very small kind of constraints that I'd be okay with, but basically once there's any significant constraint, I lose interest even if the
Yeah.
money's good. Same kind of thing that happens with the CS work. And there's one other thing I was going to say about funding. Oh yeah, it's the same problem though. Like you need to be self-sufficient. If like what if the benefactor for whatever reason decides not to benefact anymore? Like now I'm just back to the same position, right? So you can't be relying on people like that. So for me it's very much about like self-sufficiency. And I think there's a pathway to self-sufficiency that's not corporate road. Again, that's the like stable road where like you can like look, if I want to just get into a position where I have some income and my income is steadily climbing, there's a very straightforward path. It's like pick one of the many areas of CS I could go into. The one I know the most about is programming, but I could also do cybersecurity, I could do networking. There's a whole ton of things, sysadmin, whatever. Then right now the market's bad, but basically mass spam applications. Eventually you'll get a hook somewhere. Once you get your foot in the door, do work, excel within that domain, get either promoted or leverage your prior experience there to climb the chain at other jobs. And then, you know, within a few years of really hard, dedicated work, you're in a position where you have like a pretty solid tech job. You're making 6 figures. You're good. Absolutely no interest. Would sooner kill myself. No chance. Not happening. For me, it's I could explain why I don't like those things to some extent, but it's just not for me. It's not going to work.
I'm certainly interested
for
to
me,
hear your
there's a-
views on why you don't like it. It seems to be a lot about the restriction of autonomy, right? You hate the idea of your boss saying, get this done by Friday or whatever it may be.
That's a big part of it. I'll just say one other thing about it before you can re-prompt me to talk about why if you want, but I just want to say the other path though. So the one path, that's the stable path, and that's most people. And I also want to be really clear about this. I am not shitting on people on that path. Like, you don't hear, I mean, I might sometimes say it as a meme, words like wagey or something like that. I actually don't know if I've ever said that word, but there might be things I've said that are like memey. But in reality, I totally respect people who do those things. I don't think there's anything, I mean, it's what makes the world go round. There's
Absolutely.
like, it's valuable, incredibly valuable, but it's also just not psychologically going to work for me. The other path though, it's a little more fucked. So that's the path that a lot of people go down in tech. Something like the kind of thing I just talked about. And that path is tried and true, and it's reliable and stable, basically. Well, if there's CS people who can't get fucking jobs in the comments or whatever, I don't know, but that's like the more stable path, at least. There is another path, though. The other path is to build something yourself. So it's to do the entrepreneurial thing. And that path is sketchier because at the outset, you have to front load a ton of work to get things up and running. And you have no funding really while you do that. And it's kind of more of a crapshoot. You don't really know exactly where you're going to end up. But if you get it working, life is just, from my point of view, given my values, infinitely better. I don't have my hours committed to some thing I don't care about. I'm not forced to put my attention on things I don't care about. I just have my money that comes in. It sustains me. I can focus on what actually matters to me. If what matters to me is getting more money, I can put time into building up more of my systems that generate money. If what matters to me is doing creative expression, I can do that. And also the ceiling is higher. When you work for someone, there's basically always a lower ceiling. Like even the kind of unicorn special tech jobs where you're getting like, 500,000 or something, like if you are one of those special people, it still doesn't compare to just running your own business where you can start making millions of dollars if it takes off, right? So yeah. And then to answer you, because I do remember your thing now, I was worried I wouldn't, so I said you could re-prompt me, but I don't know if I can name them all off. Like, obviously, whenever you have a big list of things, you have to name them all. You can't really do that unless you've written it down. But I can say some. Yeah, I mean, I basically, I mean, there's a core kind of pattern to it. I think people really don't understand what intellectual and creative work is like. It's work that requires a lot of percolation. So a lot of time just sitting around and thinking and stewing. And I find, maybe this kind of ADHD thing, I'm not sure, but I find once you throw some shit into my day, any significant amount of hours doing something that I don't actually care about, it just drains my psychology to an insane degree. It feels like a form of torture while I'm doing it. And when I'm done, I have no motivation to do anything. I need to basically decompress. And I can decompress. And then eventually, once I have decompressed, I'm like, okay, I'm back to feeling normal. Now I can, do creative. I can do it's time to go to bed and get up and do it again. And so there's just this kind of, basically, even if the thing itself, the work doesn't eat up my whole day, the recovery from the work demolishes any possibility of doing anything creative at all. So it's kind of like I can't be myself. I can't live the life that I want to live. Like, a good life for me is like, get up early in the morning, work out, meditate, drink a smoothie, and then there's a whole range of things that I like that matter to me, that are valuable, like playing music, making content, learning about concepts, reading, spending time with friends. There's more. They're not all on the top of my mind right now, but there's a bunch of these things that I think of as like deathbed safe activities, like the kind of activities that when you're on your deathbed, if you reflect and you ask, like, did I spend my time well? If your time was filled with those things, the answer will be yes. So there's a bunch of those things. And then basically once I'm done my morning shit, it's just that for the rest of the day. Then at some point, I work better in the middle of the day. I burn out a bit at night. Once my energy burns out a bit, go see some friends, get some supper, go to bed, wake up, do it again. And I end up doing something that is very close to, or maybe more in many cases, hours, than to full-time work. But it arises kind of naturally because you put me in the right conditions where I'm naturally productive. So it's sort of like knowing that is the kind of life that I need to be in. It's not necessarily a wealthy life, but just a life where I'm facilitated enough to do the not particularly financially demanding things, but the things that I care about, and to be saving some money as a buffer for any like real negative stuff that might happen in my life or to someone I care about. That's the kind of life that I actually value having. And that just, it doesn't seem like I get there if I go the corporate road. I don't see how it happens.
No.
I'd rather be poor and struggling than have money and have my time wasted, because my time is actually more valuable to me than, like, literally more valuable to me than the money. I would rather make just enough for food and other necessities like dentist or whatever, and have my time free, than make like, like $500,000 a year. That's a very high salary. Most people in tech are not going to get that. But then make even the top tech salary and work a 9 to 5, or have any significant amount of my hours committed to something I don't care about. And it's not like a choice. It's not even like a thing to ponder. It's like a obvious answer to me. It's like, of course I don't care about that.
Yeah, dude, I identify with what you're saying so much. As you know, I now run a vegan research company, and it is, not a flex. It's every bit as fulfilling as I hoped that it would be, right? And I have, I get to work on all sorts of different projects that are intellectually challenging, and I care about the outcome of them, and I do have like a good degree of control over how my day, I can go to the gym in the middle of the day if I want to, if I don't have meetings, right? And that is, I mean, honestly, I feel really grateful every day for my work life. And I had the experience beforehand. I interned at Bloomberg before. I did my undergraduate degree was in business, and then I went and did this internship at Bloomberg, and I had this sort of looking down the barrel of the life that I could have had if I had gone that route. And I did hate every minute of that internship, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm really happy for you. Like, one thing that I try to do, I don't want to be resentful of people who have achieved the good stuff. I don't actually feel
you're
much
gonna
impulse
achieve all that, though. You're doing your degree at the moment.
Hope so.
I hope so too.
Well,
yeah, and I think that's there for you if you want it. I mean, it's easy to say.
I think so. I think so too. I appreciate that. But like, when I hear someone else has achieved it, it's encouraging, and it's like, it's great. Someone carved out their own thing in the world, and they're truly happy doing it, and it's good for the world. I mean, that's great. I'm happy for you, and I'm happy for the positive effect that has.
Thank you, dude. Yeah, and I will say as well, it wasn't a given. 7 years ago or whatever, when I was still doing my PhD, I probably just thought, like, I guess I'll eventually finish the PhD and then go work at Bloomberg, I swear, right? Like, I didn't think, I didn't dare dream that I could, keep on doing stuff that I care about to such an extent and so on. So, yeah, it's totally possible. And I mean, I'm sure that you have far greater insight into this than I do, but there must be all sorts of ways to leverage your position, your degree of internet celebrity that you have. We were watching earlier a video about why you should start a YouTube channel in 2025, and from someone called Vegan Gaze, and do you know her?
A little bit. I don't know her well, but that's Ellie. We've talked like a handful of times. She's always been nice to me.
Right. Yeah. And one of the things that she mentioned was you get discovered, and you get other opportunities, and you get people coming and join your Discord server, offering you jobs or whatever it may be, right? So it's really, really good to have that advert for yourself out there.
Well, as you know, like, for the last few years, again, like, I stopped Ask Yourself stuff. I first largely for school to get into better positions, so I don't have the fear of getting annihilated by an unaccountable YouTube person. So my output dropped, but then I learned the coding stuff, and I started building up a whole shit ton of code, right? So for Ask Yourself stuff, there's a lot of cool shit that I've built. So I do think that there's a pathway to using, like, social media and all that stuff to make a living. Like, I actually think that if I just had the time and funding, that I probably could make that path work. But that was the path that was too difficult in the meantime, and I don't know exactly how to say this, but I haven't thought of how to articulate this, but, like, that just ground me down, and so I think it's possible, but I want to do something more stable for the basic layer of income and then return to it, rather than trying to work towards making that work. Because even though I think it could work, it's going to be like a process. There's still a lot of code that I have to produce, and there's a lot of stuff I have to do to get it rolling. But there's other things that I could do that could start generating reasonable money a lot faster. And when I look at the pathway of trying to parallelize working on, okay, I actually can explain it. Yeah, when I look at the pathway of trying to parallelize ask yourself stuff, doing all this dev stuff I'm doing with doing the master's degree and just the rest of life in general, that seems achievable, but like a longer pathway than first setting up another thing for income to just escape the rat race and the bullshit, and then going back to ask yourself, like, yeah, that'll delay me by a bit, but then I'm just free to focus on it. So not only will I have more fun working on it, I just it seems overall like the better path.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that what you just said there about being able to use social media and stuff like that to make money is false. I think that path could work out. I just think that the more strategically optimal thing, which I won't get into the exact stuff that I'm getting up to, but the more strategically optimal thing is first get a thing that generates a lot of near passive money, then come back to it, rather than just try to hammer through with that until it generates enough money. I think eventually I'll have it up and generating money regardless, but yeah, do you understand what I'm saying here, right?
100%. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I really identified what you said about having one thing in your day that you don't particularly want to do, and then that's going to throw you off. I try and put all of my meetings on a Monday or a Thursday, and then apart from that, I have normally 3 out of 5 days in a week where I don't have any meetings, which is great. I work from home as well, so I'm really just right.
Nice.
And that is if I end up with a day where I have like, oh, someone couldn't do the Thursday, I had to meet them on the Wednesday, I'll really, rather than having the clear day, I'm like, I've got that call at 12 o'clock. That's only 3 hours away. Do you know what I mean? And then it ends up being the whole day. And I hope that this call isn't that for you, because I know this is like afternoon.
Oh no, this. Yeah, excuse me. Sorry, I got the hiccups. But yeah, that's this. No, I mean, well, I'm glad this is on Tuesday, right? So this isn't one of your work scheduling call days. So I'm glad.
Furious.
I'm glad I'm not in that category.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean stuff like this. I mean, I've told you I actually would just do calls like this for free, just because it's like, there's a limitation on my time. But when it's like a vegan activist or someone in the vegan space and they want to do some kind of thing, I'll often clear time for that. But it's not like I mean, I wouldn't class it as labor. You've just like insisted on paying me, which I appreciate.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
But I would. This is actually something I would do anyway, at least often. I mean, school might kind of fuck with that to some extent, but it's because it's easy enough, right? It's like it's just, I don't have to do a bunch of research and stuff for it. It's an enjoyable conversation. So
Yeah,
and
it
does
vegan ideas,
some vegan stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I'm
And you have
pleased
good questions that are
Oh, good. I'm glad. Yeah. Do you know what? I listened to the Sam Harris podcast. You like that, Sam Harris?
Overall, yeah. I mean, there's some things that he's kind of fucked on, but yeah.
Yeah, he started doing ones where a lot of his episodes are like him interviewing someone, and that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
He started doing them, which is his producer, I guess, interviewing him mainly.
Oh yeah,
which is actually kind of more interesting.
Those,
yeah, that's good, don't you think?
I don't know if I have a preference for one over the other, but I don't have any problem with that format. Like those can be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think of that similar to this. I like the opportunity to talk to you and kind of draw out some of your ideas in a format that, like, you wouldn't necessarily have made a video about. Is it obligatory or whatever?
Sure.
But we've kind of got your ideas about that out there now, which is cool.
Well, those ideas are pretty half baked, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, no, I understand that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm pleased to be a platform for getting your ideas out there in the meantime before you come back around to ask yourself.
Yeah, well, give it time. I'll get there. But yeah, no, I mean, I appreciate it. It's it's a fun conversation. I like thinking about these things. Sometimes you ask things that I don't really think about or have much to say about, but You also ask a lot of things I do have stuff to say about, and it's fun to explore regardless. You know, not everything has to be a like super polished, like here's like my fucking magnum opus on X topic. Sometimes it can just be more chill.
For sure. And I will say this, like usually when you hear this kind of like podcast style conversation, if you could call it that, you're hearing somebody being brought on because they're going to talk about a specific topic that's their life's work, and so they're very like, obviously I know what to say about this and so on. Whereas I'm
Right.
coming with some questions that I think you might have answers to, and sometimes you go, I never thought about that before, and it's a different style of conversation.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting though. It's a cool format to do a little bit of that because yeah, there's a lot of things I'll just never make a video about because I don't care enough about or I don't really have strong opinions on them. But you know, if someone else gets some value out of hearing what I think about it, I mean, I guess it's a little hard for me to see the value because I like see the value more in the things I put a lot of thought time into. But if other people are saying something's valuable to them, then you know, it's fair enough. It's if it's valuable to them and if it's fun to me, why not do it?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Hey, we're over the hour, quarter past the hour already. I have one more thing
I
that we
noticed
could
that.
discuss.
Yeah, well,
And then I'll press
let's
the
do
timer
that
now.
one other topic and then call it there. Yeah.
Okay, nice. So I think this might be an easy one for you, but I've just been like coming up against the idea of quote unquote emotional arguments and thinking,
Hmm.
is that a valid thing? I mean, people say this about animal issues, right? And the implication is, if you were less emotional and more rational, then you would not care about animals because that's just, you're having an emotional reaction to that, and therefore that's emotional, and therefore that's not rational. But I don't. That's not right, is it?
Well, there's something weird about putting emotional and rational in opposition to each other. Those aren't
Hmm.
like antonyms, right? You could, I mean, the first half of it is true, which is if you have no fucking emotion, I forget how you phrased it, but you're probably not going to care about veganism.
Right.
But that's not like because there's a sliding scale from emotion to reason and you've like moved towards reason. Like you
That's how.
could,
That's how a lot of people appear to think about it. Like, do you have
why
that same?
can't you be highly reasonable and also care? Like, isn't that kind of an
Right.
obvious place that you could end up?
Yeah.
That's where I think the best people end up.
It seems to me that it would be. And then the thing I think is there's an awful lot then taken for granted in anything else that we might care about. Like, why do we want to stop climate change or reduce crime or obesity or anything? Like, it's always going to ultimately cash out in like those things make us feel bad on some level, right?
Oh, okay. Well, wait. There's different kinds of questions you can ask here. So there's one question of like, if you move from being more emotional to more rational, are you less likely to care about veganism? And it's like, yes, but in virtue of becoming less emotional, like not in virtue of becoming more rational.
Right, right.
Because if you, yeah, so that's kind of misleading because it makes it seem like the people who are able to really apply reason just don't care about animals. Like, why the fuck would I think something like that? But
Mm-hmm.
there's a separate kind of question, which the thing you just said sounded a bit um, more in line with associated with whatever, and that's more like, is there something wrong with in some sense appealing to emotion?
Mm.
And I mean,
Yes, that's more what I
we
mean. Yeah.
we just have to be, yeah, I mean, we just have to be clear about what we mean. Like, there's senses where obviously not. Like, I mean, there's tons of arguments that I could make that are just sound logical arguments that start with a proposition that's something about your values or what you care about. Like,
Right.
you know, if you prefer not to see sentient beings stabbed to death and all else held constant, this action increases the amount of sentient beings that are stabbed to death, then you'll have, to like the same A4TR argument. To the degree that you have a preference against the death stabbing, you have a preference against this action. Like, I mean, you can make that all formally valid and set it up nicely. But the point is just that you can build tons of arguments that are perfectly sound and that have a premise in them that's about values. In fact, how the fuck do you ever make an argument about values ever if you can't do that? Because then
Right.
you're talking about crossing the Azot gap.
Right. Right. Yes. So
right?
any
How do you
yeah.
start from premises like world is exists and animals suffer, therefore you ought be like, you have to have a value thing in the premises to be able to get to the conclusion. You also have to have like it's bad to to do so and so.
Yeah.
So no, if so, it depends what we mean. But there's also there's other things that might be called an appeal to emotion that are fallacious. I'm trying to think of like an example. Like, well, I guess there's like appealing to consequence where there's, I guess it's not necessarily an appeal to consequence. You might be some of these fallacies like butt up against each other.
Interesting.
But you could have a case where like you you say that I don't know, you like try to imply that something is false because one has a particular emotional reaction to it or something. Like you are grossed out by, I don't know, like like I don't know exactly how to set it up, but the point is you could set up something where it's not like it's not the emotional thing is not connected in any meaningful logical way to what's going on. Like how do they define the fallacy? Because they define it in a way that's kind of retarded and one sec, appeal to emotion, and where it just like sounds like it's also saying that making arguments that start with values is bad. Argument to emotion is an informal fallacy characterized by manipulation of the recipient's emotions in order to win an argument. Like what the? Yeah, that's kind of vague, especially in the absence of factual evidence.
Manipulation of
Yeah, I could
emotions.
kind of see this, like for instance, leveraging the fact that someone is like scared of something to make them think that it's false that that thing is good for you, maybe with like the vaccines or something like that, like that could fall under this sort of description, because it's like the factual evidence isn't there and you're sort of trying to leverage their emotions in the absence of evidence to get them to some sort of conclusion. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like certainly in a lot of cases it could be problematic. So it's just one of these things where like you have to understand with the informal fallacies. Like there's the different fallacies, right? There's the formal ones and the informal ones. The formal ones are all just about logical structure, so they're just kind of like trivial facts about how inference works.
Mhm.
But the informal ones are all like kind of gritty, like human language, like hard to, some of them are hard to exactly characterize. So I think sometimes they get defined in a way where it's like, oh, well, I can picture a case of this that are actually good, or like I can, and you kind of have to tease out the right way to represent it. But anyway, hopefully I gave enough example that it's kind of like, okay, there's obviously cases where emotions come up in arguments, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you have to do that to make certain kinds of arguments. You have to start from values or else you're crossing the Azad gap. And then there's cases where it's not, where like, just to take one obvious case, like the facts don't support your view. You know someone is scared of a certain thing. You try to leverage their fear in some way to prompt them into believing something there's not evidence for. That seems like a fallacy.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. So there is a legitimate, or rather, it's not illegitimate to appeal to emotion in one sense, or rather to like, I guess, like have a premise which includes some emotional evaluation or some preference evaluation. And then the part where it would be, I guess, dishonest or informally fallacious is if is the manipulation part, right? It's like the deception part to do with emotions. So I'm trying to think what that could be in the case of like a vegan argument. It would be as if you were talking about animals, but actually you know that animals are not conscious and don't suffer, or something like that.
Oh, well, maybe someone's pushing back on veganism by showing that some particular action doesn't actually increase suffering on net, but then you're like focusing on one being who it does increase suffering for, and being like, look at how much they're suffering. Like you should just accept that this thing is bad. It's like there's not actually evidence that the thing is overall bad on the relevant values. But there's this thing that is emotionally triggering. Yeah, that's a great example. Yeah, that is a good example. I think people get emotionally hijacked on that. They see a single animal or picture a single animal that suffers, and they're like, I buy crop, animal dies, I am killing, I'm bad. Like I'm kind of just on the same spectrum as a carnus, but just lower. And yeah, I mean that just totally hijacks people's emotions. But yeah, you could make you could explicitly make some kind of invalid like appeal to emotion kind of thing to leverage that also. Yeah. So basically, just fallacies, they're not always perfectly defined. You have to carve out cases, but we just gave some like paradigm cases of things that clearly that might fall under appeal to emotion, but some clearly are acceptable and some clearly aren't. So with a lot of things with philosophy, you just have to be kind of clear about what concept you're using, like what's the notion of obligation we're using, what's the notion of appeal to emotion that we're using. And then once you get clearer about the concept, it's a bit easier to talk about which things fall under it or not. Because right now you look at that and it's like, it might be a little bit vague, and you might be able to picture with some of these fallacies some things that fall under them that don't actually seem fallacious. But you can kind of take the wheat from, sift the wheat from the chaff, and you know, try to try you know what I mean.
I
Yeah.
know what you mean. Yeah. It's in some cases it's legitimate, in some cases not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just specifically the definitions can be a bit vague, and it's not always totally obvious how to class the things just by looking at the definition. So sometimes you have to do a little interpretive work, and you have to go, okay, like obviously they're getting at something with appealing to emotion. Surely there's cases where that's bad, but also there's cases that's good. So let's like kind of tease out the two cases and sort of get a sense of what kind of things work and what don't. Because the fallacy labels don't always give you a clear like universe cleaver where you can just split the universe in half, the things that are fallacious and aren't. Sometimes you got to
Right.
kind of do a bit of interpretive work, think about cases. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I appreciate that distinction for informal and formal fallacies as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on it before we close?
Well, I'll just bring up one thing before we stop. Someone in my
Sure.
chat said search for fallacy fork. Have you ever heard of this?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, the fallacy fork is a philosophical concept that suggests when a traditional formal fallacy is analyzed, it either applies to a rare, strictly formal deduction with no real-world application, or its application is so nuanced and context-dependent that it's no longer a straightforward fallacy.
Oh, who sent that? That's based. Yeah, that person's got a nice little insight there. Yeah, that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Yeah. Exactly, because like you look at this and it's like, okay, well, what exactly do we mean with the informal fallacy? And like, if you make it rigid and precisify the whole thing, it's like, yeah, that's bad. But how is that not just some version of like an invalid argument or something? Like that's exactly the kind
Right.
of thing that I'm thinking. Yeah. So
There you
yeah,
go.
that person is
Vegan
is
2.0
based,
versus
whoever
animal
that is.
abuse. Nailed it in my chat. Good for them. Base name as
I
well.
wonder who that is. I don't recognize the avatar, so I have no clue. But that's a good one there. Yeah.
Nice.
You want to end on that note then? That's a good note to end on.
I think that's a good note to end on. Yeah. Thanks for the chat, dude. Always nice to talk to you. I look forward to next time.
Yeah, man. Of course, anytime. Good talking to you too. I look forward to whatever questions you have next time around.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Yeah. Okay. Peace out.
Cheers. Damn, well, I enjoyed that. I always enjoyed talking to Isaac. He's a real smart guy, and I am getting, really improving the clarity of my thought around a lot of these things from talking to him. Wow, we got 12 people here. This is great. That's my peak, guys. That's my peak. Let's see if there's anything else that we can look at today. I'm going to call it pretty soon. In fact, I think I'm going to call it there. I'll probably stream again tomorrow. I have a call in the evening. Well, it could be an interesting conversation to do on stream, actually. I'll ask that guy if he wants to talk live. It was a call for a YouTube video. So maybe I'll stream that, but if not, I will have a video forthcoming. But thanks to everyone who stuck around and watched the stream. I appreciate you guys. And you know what, when I first started doing YouTube, my original idea was to do live streaming, and within that to have people taking part in like collective campaigns and writing to MPs and all this sort of stuff. So that's still very much on the menu, and I want this to be the start of a cool, impactful vegan community, and we can come together and do stuff on live streams, because there's so much that can be done, as you've seen, to help animals just from your computer. So we'll do some Vegan 2.0 live streams. Thanks to everyone who joined in. Thank you guys in the chat. This is Chris Bryant, PhD.